You can be the best entrepreneur in the world in the wrong market, and it's a losing tide. You're always going backwards. Whereas you can be a shitty entrepreneur in an uptrend, and you will make it. Because it's not dependent on you. You're not that special. We're helping podcasters grow and monetize their audience. And most podcasters are broke. Most entrepreneurs who run a podcast can't run it. We just solved that problem. We were the first people on YouTube for shorts. As in, like, when shorts kicked off, I was the first person on literally the channel, because it happened immediately. We got lucky because shorts were trying to pull attention from TikTok at the time that anything would just go fucking fire. So we were hitting, for people like Rob, like 2 million, 3 million views on shorts before they implemented monetization. And the second I went into like a 9 to 5 in a bank, I was like, this is immediately not for me. Everyone was fat, lazy, broke, their head down, just completely bald. Like, it was the worst environment ever, and it was super toxic. The passport app went to zero. E-com brand went to zero. The raves had to stop because they were just fucking stupid and childish. Like, everything went to zero to get to the place that I am now. Like, it has to go to zero. The position we're in now for podcasting is that sponsorships have never been bigger. You know, like, we're doing like 8K, 9K a deal, which is fucking crazy.
Moving to Bali, and like, you're relying on these brand deals coming in, you're relying on the monetization for the views coming in, then it puts you under so much pressure and stress to make it work that you're almost overthinking and not creating the best content that you possibly can because there is that financial pressure.
Well, that's why you need to build an offer in the back end.
Are you ready? Ready
I'm
to rock
always
and roll?
ready.
Okay, so I'm going to start with some super basic questions, just because I want whoever's watching this to understand who is Darren Lee, what is he about, what does he do, where does he come from, where was he born, how old is he? So I know it's basic, but I actually don't even know half this stuff anyway, so I want my audience to understand fully who you are, and then I feel like when we get further and deeper into your story, then I feel like you're quite a relatable guy. Like, hearing your story and where you came from to where you are now is like extremely inspiring. So yes. I think it's important that we don't skip any steps and
for sure
show people what is possible.
For sure, man. For sure. You're also a big part of my journey too, right? But you don't realize.
Well, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, man. So where do you want to start?
How old are you?
28.
Nice. And where were you born?
So originally from Cork in Ireland in the south, but I wasn't born in the city. So I was born like basically like middle of nowhere, like out back of like fucking literally nowhere. So it was very, very rural to the point that we didn't have like internet growing up. We didn't have like much connectivity to the world. My two parents worked like out in the city, but we were 45, 50 minutes from the city. So Ireland is super, super rural in that regard. So it's kind of like, you know, when you picture like those like, massive rolling hills of Ireland, that's basically where I lived. So I really was like completely extracted from this for a lot of my life, genuinely. And it was only until I got to high school that's when it kind of things started to roll into pace, where I kind of went into like reality in society. But for me, the big kind of beginning was starting in Cork, but my main whole life was around sport. We can go into detail on, but that's how I got out of it. Basically, it was through sport too.
And how far away was your school from like your house?
So that was pretty close, but it was super rural. Like 10 people in my class, no like insight into what was really going on in the world or like anything. It was just super, super rural. And like these people, they stay local, right? And they don't move. They don't leave their high school. They don't leave anything. But for me, I was like talented at sport. So I was really big into athletics, 100-meter sprinting and rugby. But that's not like a really well-known sport in Ireland. Does that make sense? Especially running.
Not Gaelic.
Not Gaelic. I fucking hated that. Hated that. But the reality was I was often training when most people were in school, and I was often not going to school because I was training. So I'd spend majority of my very early years just running 24/7, training track, training hills, going to events, because that's what I wanted to do. And I was like super bad at school, man, like horrific at school, to the point that it was kind of an unspoken rule that I was not going to be someone who was going to study. It was just like, this is not what he does. You know, there's just those people who are just more like sport oriented, to the point that I was like really fell behind in school. I was told I was too dyslexic, bear in mind, to go to school. And then it just became all in on sport. And dude, this was when I was like 8, super young at this now. So like I was developing mentally a lot faster than most people ever would, because for me, it was just, how far can I take this?
Yeah.
And that's the irony, right?
Yeah, I feel like since knowing you for the last, not even a year, bro, like literally haven't even known you a year yet, but I
No
know
way.
that you're quite an intense guy. Not in an intense way that like I'm thinking in my head like, oh fuck, here comes Darren and I'm gonna get tortured here. But intense in that anything that you decide to go deep into, or you show any kind of interest into, then you go deep, very deep. And
I can tell you why that is.
yeah, well, why do you think it is? So I think it kind of started with sport.
It's from insecurity, 100%. Like I've spoken regularly about this, that I feel like I'm running from pain more than I'm running towards pleasure. And it's just been a huge part of me, because when I was younger, we go back to like being in school, I was told that I couldn't do school. Like wasn't a thing that I could do. So sport had to be the thing that had to work. Like it had to work. And I just took on that identity. So indirectly as a kid, I was someone who was sporty, right? And I'm the same height I am now as I was when I was 13. But I just got like big quite young, right? I got like muscular quite young. And then it was rugby. And then, you know, you see more rugby players than you do see Irish sprinters in the Olympics. So let's play more rugby. And then that got me into like a very prestigious school for rugby. But the focus was not on education. So it was like, how do I put absolutely everything into this, because I wasn't a bright guy. And I think for me, a lot of that does come from insecurity, because like, you know, I'm not 6'3", jacked, fucking massive like Mike Thurston, right? So I have to like in some way make up for this. You get me? And that's why for me it was that focus on sport up until I blew my kneecap into like a million pieces. And then I had to stop playing contact sport. So think about it this way. You've been told up until your entire life that the only thing you can do is this, and then that gets stripped away from you at 17, whether you're the best or not. Like I'm not saying that I was the best, I'm just saying that's all I did. That then I had to realign my entire existence. Bro, I'm like 16 years old. And to explain how bad it got, so I was playing rugby and I dislocated my kneecap, tore my cruciate, and I went in to get a surgery straight away. And the surgeon said, "How is the car?" And I was like, what the fuck? Because he thought I was in a car crash when he was in such a bad condition and I was just training. So after that, I was told I could not get back running. Okay. So doctor said I could never run again. And within 6 months, I got back playing. Would you believe? I just did my therapy, went to my physiotherapy. Most people who tear their ACL never do the work you need to do. But I was a super anal to the point of getting it done. Also, one thing you got to realize too in this is that I got the surgery on my knee, but I actually got a blood clot in my calf. And what happened there was I almost lost my leg because the blood clot got stuck in my knee, so my leg went black. Okay? So now I have this fucked up knee, I have a leg that I could almost lose, and I go for another surgery and I get it repaired, and I go on these blood thinners, which actually really fucked up my body for like a year, like 16, 17. So now there's this guy who's like basically back to zero. And the school that I went to and everything, it kind of was pointless to that degree. But I took the same lessons from that into education. So I had 2 years until school finished to get into uni. And I just had to go balls to the wall. And I mean literally all in 24/7 to get to that point. That I went to a medicine library to study for like med students. It had no windows. It was a room like this with no windows. And I spent all day, every single day, just focusing on school. And the funny thing is, and the embarrassing thing is, that I still scraped by because I wasn't good at it to get into university. But during that process, it was just a combination of studying. But because I couldn't play sport anymore, I really liked the strength and conditioning component of rugby because we were in the gym doing like deadlifts, squats, bench press, like real compound stuff, real compound stuff. But I was like, that was the stuff of rugby that I enjoy the most, which is why I started going back to the gym and focusing on that. So now I have these two things that are side by side. I have the gym, which is super numeric based. The more effort you put in, the more recovery you have, the better you get. And then I have this thing called education, which the more I work, the higher the number on the paper is and the better I feel. But it goes back to that insecurity, And from there, I'd spun off and I'd started my first business and stuff. But those two things really have always been very strong to me because I can literally see it. And now as like an entrepreneur, I can see like the revenue come in, the customers that stayed, the clients that signed, I can see it on a board. But it's been it's not a good position. Like I would say it's a bad position for people to build from. But I think in Western society, especially in Ireland, you don't have that much of a driver. It's not like America, right? Where
Yeah.
people like are broke and they're like going from zero. I had that in my own world, my own variation of it, which is like I'm going to literally end up in Pizza Hut forever if I don't fucking sort this out.
And how, like, obviously it sounds like you were kind of the motivation behind putting in the work. Like you were aware, as you said, like you didn't want to end up in Pizza Hut, but were your parents pushy into you studying and getting good results and stuff like that?
They pushed me like extremely hard for mainly to do with sport because like it was just a really high opportunity. And then as a result, I always had that like struggle feel like I was never good enough. Get me? It was never enough. Like coming second was never enough. And like what I'd learned, and it's an awful frame, which is like you're always a loser until you're a winner. And I don't agree with that anymore, but like that was my mindset for like a lot of my life, which was like you have to win, otherwise you're a loser. And now it's a bit more nuanced, there's more involved with that. But that creates this like high action environment. So you're just very action orientated. Now, the action you might take could be completely wrong, but at least you're moving forward. So that's where like you kind of have an area whereby it's a lot of logic thinking, whereby you're going to do something, you're going to study, you're going to work, you're going to the gym, but you're not really connecting with why you're doing it. And then that's why you end up going through university, hating it, not knowing what you're doing, you know? So what I do find is like a lot of my own drivers just come from my own things that I'm working on.
Yeah.
You know? But I guess like what's interesting here is like I didn't always have my head in the sand in terms of like I'm just going to learn this book and so on. When I was 16, 17, you're going to find this interesting. And actually this is a great person to talk to. So I was always like super into music. Like always super, super into music. And then like this is when like techno and house was really going crazy. So like 12 years ago, it was coming into the UK and Ireland. It was kind of getting not mainstream, but more well known. And I started running my first parties at that stage.
But wait 1 second, did you study when you went to university? Was that in Ireland or did you go away to study?
No, it was in Ireland.
That was in Ireland, in
Yeah.
Cork.
In Cork, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, and you stayed at home whilst you were in university, or did you like move into student accommodation?
No, I moved out.
You moved out?
Yeah, yeah. So not the first year,
Okay.
but after that I did.
Okay, and what did you study at university?
It's like software engineering.
Nice.
So it's a combination of like business and information systems is what it's called. But it's like software engineering, basically.
That explains a lot. Darren loves systems. So much.
But being dyslexic, I wasn't good at engineering.
Okay.
Okay. So at school, I couldn't learn language because I can't decipher it properly. Now, I can still have a mental model to learn it, but I was shit at French, German, Irish is a natural language, would you believe? I failed all of them. Then when I went to engineering, I was more interested in like the business of engineering, that like you build products and then those products solve problems and you get paid for the problems. So I was interested in that, but I was actually shit at engineering though. That's the funny part.
That's interesting. Well, same as me, bro. Like fully dyslexic. Like not fully dyslexic, but like sometimes I'd confuse P's and B's and like D's and B, like just little things like that. And also, bro, what I find so interesting is that when I was at like, bro, I haven't been motivated or like I've had no passion to learn up until literally recently. Like it's so crazy. In school, I could not give a fuck about
Yeah.
what results I got or what if I failed or not. Like I also just completely scraped by. And now that I am so interested in learning and improving, and like I love reading books now. I love psychology so much. And like it's crazy because when I was in school, that part of me, like the inspiration to learn, the motivation to learn was just not there. Like I just did not give a damn. I used to play Halo or COD
Same.
and go to the gym and nothing else mattered.
And I was like that too, right? As in, because I didn't find enjoyment in school, like I was playing fucking Modern Warfare 2, trick shotting and Rust back in the day, right? Like I was doing all those things. But to your point, right? You basically consume what you love until you love to read, right? Like you read what you love until you love to read. And that's why, like, the guys take the piss out of me because the only books I read are like sales books, because I'm genuinely interested in like psychology of sales or marketing or like, scaling or whatnot. Do you get me? You have to lean into what you enjoy, and then it becomes much more of a pursuit of like, oh, the art. Like I like to read. I like writing. I like how writing works. And that's the irony of all of this, right? Because all of the things that you were told probably when you're younger that you weren't good at, you've become good at them. And that was the big thing for me, is that honestly, the majority of things that people have told me have actually been completely incorrect. Like, get this job, work here, take on this debt, do this, do that. I took on so much debt for university that I pay back all myself through my businesses. And I was advised to do that from people that just don't know any better, right? So you obviously take responsibility for that, but it's like a lot of these things that we're told that are true are actually not true. You have to go figure these things out for yourself.
I think that's me and Joel were speaking about this last night. Like, especially living in Bali, we're slightly disconnected, especially from
Time stands still.
like the Western world, and like our way of thinking here, and almost everyone's way of thinking. Well, not almost everyone, but like where we go to the gym
Yeah.
or to an open house, for example, everyone's grinding, doing e-com, doing ads, scaling businesses, like everything that we were kind of taught to care about as kids, as children, like get in the house, get in the car. I feel like everyone in Bali has escaped that, and they've
Yeah.
realized like we've just been told that we need to get those things.
And told by who?
Exactly. Our parents or teachers or
Or,
whoever.
bro, it goes deeper, or even like the system, right? One of my mates yesterday said to me 51% of United States employees are paid by the government. Okay. So that means the education system, 51% of employees in America are funded by the government. So let's say they have ideas for housing, school, healthcare, all that shit. So the health, wealth, and relationships entire bucket is ran by that ethos, right? And that's why companies like Harvard charge you 100K for a year. Do you get me? So you need to understand the filtration system, but there's a complete change in paradigm, 100%. So people like you, hopefully myself, have got onto this wave super early, and it's only moving more like this direction. Bro, what's the antithesis of this? We go back to those jobs? Dude, you could never put you in somewhere. You couldn't put me somewhere. You couldn't put this hair somewhere. Like we are like literally individuals.
Yeah, bro. I've always rebelled against like the typical rules.
Yeah,
Like,
and I was going to use the word rebel.
Yeah,
that's exactly
you
it.
need to wear the suit for work. You need to come to school at this time. You need to wear this. You need to have your haircut like this. Like in school, we weren't allowed to have our haircut a certain way. Like, and I hate rules more than anything.
So a close friend of ours, Tom, we were chatting about a mutual friend, about who's like living in a very big city, and he was saying that he hated it, and I was like, why? And Tom said he's a rebel, just like us. He's like, that mentality you can't shake. If that it's just in you, if that dog is in you, you can't go back on it. And the funny thing is that when we're younger, we're told that we like, misbehave, but then when we see the success of the thing that we were told not to do, we double down on it. And that can be directly like me, who's like very conscientious of my decisions. Like I'm very directional focused, or it can be subconscious with someone's like, well, you told me this, but now this is completely correct, which is kind of how you fell into this, right?
Yeah.
Is that you were doing a certain path and then started Creator Club, and now it's kind of just like boomed as a result. Whereas in contrast, for someone like myself, it's been a bit different because I have worked in those jobs, those startup jobs, those companies. So when I knew from myself, from real experience, that this wasn't it, because I'd done it, man. Like I was very senior in Revolut. I was making over 100K a year. I had done all the 9 yards, and I was coming out with no money, dude. Like 8K a month before tax. Tax in Singapore, not that high, but I was coming out with like 6K after tax. And then my rent was 4K or something in Singapore. So I'd done all the things that people told me to do, and it didn't work out. So why don't I do things that I love and I'm interested in, and you make work, and like everything works when you work.
Exactly.
When you work.
And I think exactly what you were saying is like, I didn't start to kind of find the things that I was really interested in. Obviously, I found videography and photography when I was like 26. So still pretty late. Like there's guys joining the Creator Club now who are literally 19, 20, 21, and they're like locked in. They're building websites, and like, honestly, unless you want to be like a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, like going to university is a bad move. Like
100%.
I went to university and I don't regret it because it bought me time to then think about what I actually wanted to do in my life. studied sports management, wanted to open my own gym. Honestly, I'll never, ever, ever use that degree ever. I didn't listen in a single class because again, I just wasn't motivated to learn back then. But like every single valuable piece of information that I've learned to get me to this position that I'm in today has been from YouTube, podcasts, and books that I have chosen to consume myself. Like the amount of money that people spend on university to learn like a subject over the course of like a term.
Yeah.
You can learn it so much faster yourself, literally by watching YouTube videos.
And that money is going to be refocused now into online education.
Exactly.
People don't realize that, that this path is only speeding up, and there's going to be a few hiccups along the way, and there could be some sort of regulation coming to online space, which I think is probably due to some degree. But invariably, why the fuck would you spend 50K on a university degree when you could literally learn like copywriting, sales, marketing, funnels, whatever, for someone for like $100 a month, and then that's it? That's it, and then we're done, and then you're on your own path. And again, like you just need to have like one success for it all to work out. And I can tell you something that you find interesting is I was running Voix under KS Media originally because I was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Didn't really know it was going to work, whatever. First person to believe in me was Rob Lipset. I had him on my show for a second time, and he was like, "What the fuck? Like it's really changed. The production's gone up and everything." And he's like, "I'd love to start a podcast." And I was like, "Yeah, you should do it. Like you just do X, Y, and Z." And he just said, "Okay, can you do it for me?" And it was the first person to believe in you to be like, "Fuck, it's possible," and that credibility comes, and there's a bit of social proof there and everything that you're like, okay, I believe in myself because someone else believes in you. And that's really, really important, right?
I think that's one of the most important things. Like for me, that was Mike.
Yeah.
Mike and even Rob. Rob said, "Okay, come and make a video for me."
Yeah.
So I think Rob had such a massive impact on both of our lives because he was the one that gave us that initial first opportunity and put the trust in us to do something. And I think that's a really good skill to have that I'm kind of learning now as I'm growing my business. And you do well, you have a team and you basically can't do everything yourself. So you need to start putting trust in other people. And that opens up a new door for them. That opens a new opportunity for them to start progressing in their life.
Oh, of course, yeah. And like the amount of money you make is going to be proportionate to how much money you can make someone else, and whether you're saving someone time on their meal plans as an online coach or whatever, that allows them to go and do more things. Like me and Rob have been working together for 2 years because he just sees like a path. Here it is. Some months you do better than others, but it doesn't matter because you have the right team in place, But if you don't mind, we can kind of go a step back.
Yeah, let's go back to
a bit further.
Hosting the parties.
Yeah, so I think what was interesting here was like because of my kind of like desire to like always do well, I kind of wanted to have like, let's say, the school in place or college in place or my fitness in place, right? Because like they're to me very obvious things that someone can fix, right? They're like, why are you not healthy? You can fix those different areas, right? But I still kind of had that kind of rebel component in me that I wanted to go do things for myself. And the first instance of that was when high school balls were becoming a thing. So we were running these high school events and getting people to like a fucking hotel, getting a DJ, booking a setting, lights, everything. And we were collecting good cash, man. And this was the first thing to me that I was like, okay, I planned something. I used Facebook at the time to get traffic to it. People come, they have a good time, they talk about it on Facebook, they tag us on photos, and then this becomes this like viral component. And I just really leaned into that.
How old were you then?
I started like 16, 17. And then what was funny here was like, that wasn't something, because this was interesting, is that because I was still focused on school and stuff, I wasn't like all in on this, right? It was something that happened maybe a few times a year or whatever. But then when I got to college, things started to ramp up. So when I got to college, that's when like techno and house was really coming in. And like, I was like at the fucking front of it, bro. Like literally, I remember I was really early into the session. Like I was like 18, 19 specifically. And I was going to these events, like Hot Since 82, could be like Patrick Topping at the time in Cork and shit, just hilarious, like tech house DJs.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, all you got to do is message this guy on Instagram, pay him like $1,000, and then he'll show up and do a set. So then we started replicating that model and doing the same thing for different events. And I was like, oh, this works and it's fun. And then to your point earlier, I got my first place in college where I moved out to, and that became just a rave house. We'd function one speakers, the same speakers you see in Glastonbury. and we had those in our kitchen, and then guys would show up, play a set, we'd go on for like 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. But I was seeing this idea of attention creates traffic, creates interest literally creates dollars. And it was just this very serendipity moment that I was like, okay, this works. Now, was I really actualizing that information? No, obviously not. I'm a kid. But it was something that I knew I was good at and I could eventually go and do more of. Now, at the same time, I didn't want to be that fucking guy running parties for the rest of my life. So I turned that concept into, instead of running raves, I would sell rave clothes to rave kids. So at the time, I wasn't living in London, and I was living just off Canary Wharf, and I had this 1-bedroom room, but I was with other people too. And we would use True Vintage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Rory, that runs True Vintage, he was on my podcast. I had met him in Urban Outfitters, and we just got on like a house on fire. Like I'd followed him for so many years. And then after that, I created my own brand called Urban Kit Clothing. And then I got clothes from the south of Italy, from Naples, and I'd import them into London. So I'd bring clothes in, and I would get a bag. So the box would be like the size of that table, and you don't know what's inside the box. The box would be like $2,000, $1,000, $500. It's different quality. And I would bring it in, model the clothes myself, take photos of myself on my balcony, and then put it up on Shopify and on Etsy, and then they would just sell. But again, I ran into a ton of problems because I had to ship these very heavy Stone Island jackets like to Canada or to Australia or to Estonia or to Russia. So that became a bit of a kind of a nightmare, logistical nightmare. But it worked, dude. You just get ads, you run ads, do the website, people buy the shit because you know the product. And that was the thing. I was always the product.
And this was just after university?
This is in university.
In university?
This is in university. I was 20 this time. So we ran up really good revenue numbers, but not profit, because the problem with e-com is that when you take in $1,000, you need to spend $1,000 to get new stock. So I was just a dumbass, right? I'm just running loads of ads, and then I brought this into zero as a result. But again, it's just another level of experience that contributes to where you are at the end of the day,
exactly.
Right? And dude, that was a tough business. A lot of work went into that. Like I was up all night doing it. I'd work for a company from 9 to 5 and spend all day then working on this. So it's not easy, right?
Wow. I have experience with a clothing brand as well, and a clothing business, and like just things, people returning items, ordering the wrong size. Like someone ordering the wrong size will cost you an absolute fortune. That just wipes out your profit.
Yeah.
Like postage issues, like actually making sure that people are actually getting their orders and making sure that they're not lying about. Like some people pretend that they have never got their order, and like then you have to, okay, well I need to get this parcel signed for, like.
And that was back when Shopify, well they still probably are, but if you disputed anything on Shopify, your account would get shut down. So that would happen to me like a lot. I'd have shit like this exactly like happen. It wouldn't show up to Canada, or wouldn't show up to like Mexico. And the complexity scales. But when you're doing that, it's not about like, oh my God, it's just so stressful. It's just about like learning that like this is like super valuable. Most people don't realize that.
So how long did you do the whole kind of events and party scene for? How long did that last?
Well, you wouldn't do that regularly. It would just be like occasionally.
So what? And it wasn't like club night events. It was for a house party and get people to pay entry.
Or we'd make events. We would rent events, and we'd create like an event center or whatnot. Because like that's when like raves were like at its earliest, and these were like proper like off the cuff, like off the side cuff, and it was sick.
In Ireland.
Yeah, it was so cool, man. Because like you gotta think about it, like this is when Bicep were just getting known, right? So they had made music for 5 years, and it was like 4,000 views on YouTube. And then 2017, 2018, they were literally just getting on the scene with like Dahilla was like a main tune. Just all these big tunes were just taking off. Ejeka was just starting as well at the same time. Like they were just at the beginning, and they were literally going to all these events all the time, because that's how early this stuff was, and it was such a crazy scene, man. It was so crazy.
And then after that, you moved to London.
Yeah. So that during university, then I had an internship in London, and we moved to London, And the second I went into like a 9 to 5 in a bank, I was like, this is immediately not for me. Everyone was fat, lazy, broke, their head down, just completely bald. Like it was the worst environment ever. And it was super toxic. Like I remember the first day I went in, they told me that every Thursday we went for Thirsty Thursdays. So we had to be in the office so that we could go drinking afterwards. And I was perplexed because I was like, hey, I got to go to the gym on Friday. And they said, oh, no, you don't go to the gym. You have to come drinking with us. I never went. I was the only person that never went. So it shows like how kind of like stubborn we can be.
And wait, before you even started working in the bank, did you ever do a normal job? Like, obviously you had the parties.
Yeah.
You had the clothing, and like they're obviously businesses that you've created yourself. Did you ever work like a normal job in a restaurant?
I actually did. I worked at, you'll love this, I worked at like a pizza place. So it was like a very shit version of Domino's. And it's so funny. I worked in a really, really rough area in Cork. And the Cork accent is so strong.
Yeah, I know the Cork accent.
So strong. So I was on the phones in this pizza shop. And I was like 18 years old. And they put me in there. They're like, all right, take the orders. And I physically couldn't hear their voice. I couldn't understand their accent. It was so strong. And I'm from Cork, bear in mind. To the point that they said, okay, fuck off. Just go into the back and make the pizzas. And I was actually literally putting the tomato sauce on the pizzas, bro. And it was the best experience ever. Because it just shows you what you don't want to do, right?
Exactly. I've got so many of them. I've done so like a list.
I worked in Skechers too, bro.
In Skechers?
Yeah, man.
Nice.
Oh, it was so funny. We'd have competitions who could sell the least amount of shoes. I would go in on a Friday evening. So myself and my mate Alan, who's a legend, by the way, he's living in Australia right now. We'd go in on a Friday. We'd get a ton of alcohol, okay? We'd get ready to like that for that night. So we'd get all our drink, get all our pre-drink stuff. We'd work from 5 till 9, wait till we finish at 9, sold nothing, right? We'd go off into my car, drive down to a party, have all our drink, we'll go out then for 2 days. Did that for like during college. Hilarious. So that's why I could experiment a lot, because I was still working quite a lot, right? Because when you're running these experiments, you're not making a lot of money, right?
Yeah, it's true. And so when you moved to London, you didn't want to drink anymore. You were focused on the gym.
Opposite.
The opposite.
No. So when I was still partying and training a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Because like that's like party culture, right? Is that you can get shredded and go out, especially when you're super young. So I was like running like the scene of like Fabric, Printworks like every weekend. So I was getting like really deep down that rabbit hole, and that's when I was really like focused on the e-com business as well, because I was at these events. And I remember when I moved to London, I was so surprised by how much fashion was a big part of the rave culture. Bro, it was everything. Like Urban Outfitters, literally their entire catalog of clothes is geared towards ravers. Literally was. So that was like a huge spark for me. I was like, fuck. So I was doing the both that time.
It's so interesting. It's literally crazy. And then, so you worked in the bank in your internship, and Thirsty Thursdays, you didn't like that. You didn't enjoy that.
No. So
and then what happened after? What's the next step from that?
So at this point, I was kind of at the point where I knew this like 9 to 5 stuff is not for me, but you can't just get out of it. You can't just like walk out of it one day. It has to be like a gentle transition. Now, I was traveling to Asia shortly after that. My first time going to Asia, I spent a lot of time in Europe, interrailing through Europe when I was in university. And that's why I worked so much, is I make so much money during the year to travel for the summer. But I was getting ready to go to Asia. So I closed down the brand at that point, making no money. And when I went to Asia, I was thinking of not coming back. Okay. So this is 2018, basically, coming up to end of university. And the decision was, do I fuck this college degree with 1 year to go and work at a startup or build a startup, or do I go back and do it? And then I basically went back to finish it reluctantly. But the rule was, if I finished it, or while I was finishing my degree, I would also work at a startup. So I worked at this like real small stage, scrappy startup, and I learned how to build product.
Where was that?
It was in Cork.
Nice.
So they were like got seed funding of like 500K. They had a bit of money to pay people. I was like an analyst there, but basically I was at the front of building products because we only had like 8 people. So I literally saw the entire journey of somebody wants something, you build something for someone, you give it to them, and then you get paid for it.
And what was the product? Just
some like financial fucking tech company, so it's like a B2B tech company thing.
Okay.
But the logic was like, I kind of had seen the creation phase. And like for me, everything was just creation, right? It was just content was creation. The brands were creation. The parties were creation. But this was like a legitimate creation. So you could see like you get money from an investor, you build a product. And it was a great idea because I was in university doing engineering. I could see what you would use it for. And then I was learning a bit in university, but I would work in that role from 9 to 5 and then go to university from 5 till 10 and go to the gym at 10 p.m. every day. And I repeated that for a year. So then when I came out of university, bro, I was already like a massive leg up because I knew what the game was, right? And I was kind of at a position to go build my own shit at that point. It was a nice position to be at because most people don't have experience. Whereas, and it's not like experience, like work experience, it's actually knowing what you want to do and how you build stuff. So I was at a point whereby I could build my own shit, you know? And I worked in another company. At this point, it was like a big fucking boring bank, but I was trying to, again, figure out how do I do this for myself. So a lot of your audience could be similar, right? They're working at companies that they hate and they're trying to figure out how to do this stuff. So at the time, I'd spent a few years traveling Asia, a few years in Europe traveling. And the biggest thing that I realized, the biggest problem was that when you're traveling and you're pissed and you're in clubs and you're in hostels, you lose shit. So preferably you lose your passport. And if you lose your passport, it's over, right? So my logic was, if I create, this is before COVID, if I create a digital passport that you could have as like a QR code or like, let's say like an encryption, you could build an app that would house your passport that you could get approved by the government. That was the idea. And I had experience building product. So I set out to build this app so people could have a mobile passport. So I went to Dublin Airport and I sat in the departure lounge looking like a fucking terrorist, interviewing people that were going to come true. So I interviewed like 200 people. Would they use a passport app? What do you think the answer was?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone fucking used it, right? This is before COVID now. So imagine like the timing of this. And overwhelmingly, like I interviewed like 200 or 300 people, came back several weeks over. Everyone wanted to use it. They wanted it like safe, secure, all this kind of stuff. I went to get funding to start up in London and I couldn't get funding because everyone's like, this guy's a kid. He's like 22 at this stage, 23. Why are we going to give him money? So great idea, but hopefully good product, but no money to build it. And that was my, again, next realization that without a brand, without a personal brand, without any authority and influence, no one wants to hear you. If the same person went to that with a bit of credibility, they would have got funding, 100%. And I got an intro to a venture capitalist firm through someone that I worked with. And like they saw it was a good idea, but they probably wanted to go do it themselves.
I think this is like, that's an absolute key point that you've just mentioned, is just the whole trust, the whole, what experience do you have? Why should I give you my money? Like I was talking about this on the Creator Club literally yesterday. And I was saying, because I've posted videos on YouTube for 6 years, once a week, and because I've showed up on Instagram, whether it's just even an Instagram story every single day, everyone in the Creator Club has trusted me to, they've given me their money. And like, I don't have a contract. They haven't signed anything. Like
contracts mean nothing.
Yeah. Like I could literally take that money and run away, but obviously I'm never going to do that. But again, I've earned their trust. So it's a lot easier. Like, as I've told you before, I don't have to sell the Creator Club to anyone. People just come to me. And people have no problem handing over the money because they trust me, because they've seen my face on YouTube for 6 years and on Instagram almost every single day.
And that's the grunt work, right?
Yeah.
That's the stuff that people don't realize, right? Is the fact that when I'd gone through that experience, and we're getting really into the sauce now, because like this is the realization of like where I actually am, is because I didn't lack action. Okay. I lacked targeting, positioning, and like literally the lessons. So after that experience, I realized that, okay, I don't know anything. I need to go learn, which is why I built the podcast. So it was me interviewing founders because I wanted to figure out, how do you do this stuff? How do you build startups? How do you build products? How do you build services? But by virtue of doing that, I went off into a different tangent, which was people came to me for podcast advice on content. But the only benchmark here was me, not who I worked with, not who I interviewed, not even anything like that. It's all about me, which is may seem kind of crazy, but it's like the 5 years that I'd built up of that is the ultimate social proof. So now, if I'm in a sales call and someone's like, hey, can you show me all the podcasts that you manage? The first person I open is my own show.
Yeah.
You have to do it for yourself before you do it for anybody else. This is why you don't get a fat personal trainer or a broke financial advisor. It has to be for yourself. So it's very easy for me to point at me as the case study and be like, this is how I do it. And that was the idea, which is the fact that I had spent so many years building shit that were going nowhere. It was based on influence. And literally going to 2025, people don't buy stuff randomly. You get me? You don't see a random landing page and like, I'm going to buy that product for 6K. There has to be that trust built in, the authority built in, and the influence. And for someone like you who has built that up as a creator to do it, photography in the beginning and videography, you get it. You look at these cameras and you get it, you understand it. And that builds so much credibility. But most guys don't have the receipts. They're lacking the receipts, you know?
Yeah, so this is funny. This is what I want to ask you about, because I went through your Instagram and as I said, I've only known you in the last kind of 6 months. So I don't know what your Instagram used to look like. Now you've only got basically from when you started the podcast, like pretty recently. So I can't see your old posts. I can't see what you used to look like. I can't see what you used to post. I can't see what type of content you used to post. And I have no idea, but I can imagine it was a lot of travel and fitness. But again, this is something that I really want to dive in quite deep, because I know that you love fitness so much, even now. And your Instagram is kind of the opposite to mine. You are constantly providing value. You're very niche focused on podcasts, whereas mine is just kind of all over the place with little bits of everything. And I want to know what got you into the whole content creation journey. Like, where did it start? Like,
Okay,
have you
awesome.
been always posting on Instagram? Like, did you have, like, there's so many people now as well who have, I saw that I went to your very first podcast. It's been like 3 years, almost 4 years. And like, some people, was that your very first YouTube channel, or had you had a YouTube channel in the past?
No.
Like, this was completely from scratch.
Completely from scratch. So it's a great point, right? Because when I started the podcast, I was so like anxious of it going wrong. Because again, right, I'm running from pain always. I always have that internal belief. So I had no idea of production, no idea how to run conversations, no idea of cameras. I was using my HP laptop camera.
Yeah, in a bedroom in Bali, it looked like.
That's my first YouTube video. My first podcast was actually in Dublin.
Oh, really?
Okay, it was in Dublin, and it was in my bedroom. There it was just tiny with a shitty microphone, right? So I had no idea about it, but I have this internal thing that if I suck at something like these cameras initially, it drives me crazy, because I'm kind of like, why am I not good at this, or why can I not figure this out? So, two components piss me off: the production side, which is I can learn how the cameras work, and the second side then is me, who's a chatty, young Irish guy who just likes being out and chatting to people. Why am I not good at this? And that's the reps that we talked about earlier to do a podcasting, that it's a whole new medium. Okay. So that drove me to have this idea that I want to keep on going at this to get better and better and better. And at that time, I'm fine tuning every piece of content, bear in mind, because I'm reviewing everything. And at that point, podcasts weren't even a thing. That's how early we were, right? The first YouTube video was not my first podcast.
Okay, so that's interesting. Let's quickly talk about that. When was your first podcast, and why was it not on YouTube?
So 2020, everything was audio only.
Wow, on Spotify.
Spotify, Apple, okay? So everything was audio only, and video wasn't a thing. YouTube had no index for podcasts. It was only like Joe Rogan would just throw up like a random video, but for the most part, it was all audio only. Chris Williamson was audio. Tim Ferriss was audio for many years, and YouTube wasn't a thing. Whereas I quickly discovered that audio was a fucking mess. It was like audio, so Spotify, Apple, it was a mess. So the solution to that was video. And that's when I really fell in love with video, because I discovered Joe Rogan because of video, not because of audio.
Yeah.
I listened on audio. So the logic here was get really good at the production process and then bring that into different platforms. Now, to answer your question about like my content journey, so I was really focused on audio and figuring that out. When I was getting that dialed in, like 10, 20, 30 episodes at 6 months, people that I would interview would be like, hey, like, you know, this guy's super just fucking obsessed. Like, how do you do this? And I would say, oh, it's simple. You just get that camera, that microphone, whatever. And they say, oh, can you do this for me? And that was the first signal. Okay? That's the first signal. And I was doubling down on production. I was teaching a lot of people like how to juice shows just indirectly, to the point that my show was always helping people. Initially, it was young guys in their career, would you believe? So LinkedIn, as fucking woke as it is, was always a platform for me. So I got into writing as well as speaking. So I was learning how to write and learning how to speak.
How long ago was this?
5 years ago.
Okay.
So 2020, we're in 2025 now. So I was learning how to write, learning how to speak. I was shit at both. And you have to remember that now. Dyslexic and couldn't speak well on camera. So the two skills had to elevate. And the more that I wrote, the better I got at speaking. The more that I spoke, the better I got at writing. So I was fine tuning two of these, and I was interviewing entrepreneurs. So it became very natural for them to say, hey, can you come and help me? So we started consulting with these companies. I was not focused on IG at all. Then I had done this for quite some time, that I got to the point whereby I basically just came to the realization that video was the future for everything to do with content, especially podcasts. And we were just coming out of the period during lockdown that you could go into a studio. So we just jumped on it. So very little structure on YouTube, but just knowing that we want to put specific content on specific channels.
And where were you in the world at this point?
Singapore. Yeah, so I moved to Singapore at this point. So people were coming to me for their finance podcast, their real estate podcast, their fitness podcast, and they'd say, hey, can you do this for me? So I just thought, okay, let's do very searchable discovery stuff on YouTube. So I'd run their channels, how to do your macros, how to get your first real estate property, how to pick your first 3 stocks. And I would write the content, bro. The dyslexic guy is writing the copy for YouTube. Do you remember? You have to do this for yourself. So I would run like 10 channels on my own. And I'd have an editor, to be fair. So the editors for kickoff sessions became the editors for KS Media at the time. And then what was happening here was we were really getting into a pattern of repeatability. Niches, topics, hitting the same thing. We were the first people on YouTube for shorts. As in, like, when shorts kicked off, I was the first person on literally the channel because it was like it happened immediately. We got lucky because shorts were trying to pull attention from TikTok at the time, that anything would just go fucking fire. So we were hitting, for like people like Rob, like 2 million, 3 million views on shorts before they put on monetization. So everything was working. And then YouTube started doubling down more on podcasts. And to your point about Instagram, only when LinkedIn was dialed in, that my writing for educational content was dialed in, that I couldn't put out more posts, which was 7 posts a week, that we looked at Instagram. And it was Instagram for my clips and more for authority style content for me. So now I just create this authority style content on LinkedIn, on Instagram, that has low views, high engagement of leads. So it's kind of like counter to the content creation world. I have like very, very targeted content that produces like extremely valuable leads. So it goes back to what are we optimizing for? I do want to help people, which is what kickoff sessions is for, like our conversations and stuff. Yeah. It's broader. But my content specifically is geared towards generating business. And the more specific we can be, the better the business that can be as a result, right? So that's where like this has become like a very profitable business, because it's taking the logic we were doing for LinkedIn into clients across YouTube and audio, and then taking that model into IG for me has worked. And now like the team is very big. We have an IG team. I run the LinkedIn. We have a YouTube team. So all of it feeds into one mission. And to your point, I do think that you need to have that kind of enjoyable content, because that's how I've done 250 episodes. Because if it was just, here's my funnel, I'd go crazy. So I can sit with you, I can sit with Rob, I could sit with like a Rob the Bank, I could sit with someone who's just completely different, but tie it back to a central team. And my central team is like helping young people live a richer and more fulfilling life. You know?
I think
it sits under one bucket.
I think it as well just works really well with your personality, because I think you're naturally very inquisitive and you get to ask people questions. And what people don't realize is like podcast is a life hack. Like look how knowledgeable and intelligent Joe Rogan has become.
Yeah.
Most likely because of his podcast and learning
100%.
from these incredible guests every day. I've even seen Mike, Rob, I've seen them progress as people and you from having these guests on. Like you have psychologists on, you have entrepreneurs, you have business experts. Like you're learning so much from these people.
And you're also getting the insight for free. People don't realize that.
Exactly.
So James Kemp, who you should definitely meet, by the way, he's coming in here tomorrow for a podcast, second one. Like James Kemp's hourly rate is like $1,000 because he doesn't want to do one-to-ones. And I just messaged him like, hey bro, want to pop down for a coffee and a podcast? He goes, yeah, cool. And now he's running loads of like really, really high level stuff. He's at the top of the game in the coaching business right now. He's doing 300K a month with one person himself a month. And I get to ask him the questions for free. So people don't understand that, you know, and that's why I'm much more geared towards podcasts that are like information based, because the education comes in and it's fun and it's enjoyable, but you know, you learn and then it's a valuable source of your time too, right? So again, you got to think about the timeline that was really important here, because when I started my show, I was like figuring this stuff out, finding out how the content runs, and I put in those 100 reps. The 100 reps are my first 100 episodes. My episode 100 was my first one in a studio, which is funny, right? Did 99 episodes remotely, and then one, because it was during lockdown, right?
Wow.
So it wasn't possible. And when everyone said we'd quit, when everyone said podcasts were going to run out, what happens is you get like a trend, like podcasts were in 2020 during COVID, and then it booms up, everyone falls out. But if you could stick with it, you just go off, right? So now we're at a stage 5 years into the game whereby Cristiano Ronaldo is now creating podcasts.
Yeah.
I saw him last night creating a podcast. You know, people like Trump, Kamala Harris, these people are using that mechanism. And this isn't about podcasts, but it's just about content-led businesses, because people aren't buying people random shit. And that's what these guys have a really good frame on. And we can get into storytelling and how to do this elegantly and so on, right? But that was a big realization for me, was like, if I just stay in it, and as you know with YouTube, like YouTube goes up, it goes down, it goes in between and so on. You just stay in it, then you will come out the other end in a better way, right? Always.
Exactly.
But most people shit their pants, right? And they lose their mind. We have some videos that are 10 out of 10. They're at the bottom on YouTube. You just stay in the game, and then you're going to get a 1 out of 10 from there, right?
Yeah.
And people recognize that too.
100%. And another thing as well, like obviously Mike, my best friend, and he obviously is my best friend, and he has pretty much been my mentor. And I know like Mike's kind of biggest struggles is that he's an introvert. He basically had to train himself how to talk on camera, how to make YouTube videos. Like it was a real effort for him. Whereas I can just pick up the camera and just talk to it as if it's a person. Like I don't even think about it. But Mike had to literally train himself and learn how to do that.
So that's why it's important to lean into what you enjoy. So I know he learned it, but if you struggle to make talking head videos, just don't make them.
Exactly.
Right? Just do long form. If you struggle to write newsletters, just write tweets. Like you have to figure out by trial and error what it is, what medium you prefer. So I write medium copy text around like 200 words, 100 words. That would be for me medium length, and I can write really good copy that way. I can't write tweets that well, and same with videos. I can't do individual talking head videos. I can't read scripts.
Yeah.
So if I know that, then I just need to work around the things that I enjoy. All right, like long form. All right, like writing. Lean into what it is that you enjoy. Right.
Exactly. And for Mike, it was fitness. And this is another thing that I've like making the videos, holding the camera was the hard part, which is why he hired people like as soon as he possibly could financially. But like again, as you're saying, lean into the things that you're good at. I had a bit of a meltdown with my content, because I was like, seeing everyone making these amazing talking head videos. Everyone's going into the studio. They're using these scripts. They're filming this type of content. It's really high value, like short form content. Like it's got a purpose, and people are learning from this content. And I just can't read from a script. I hate reading from a script. I literally despise it. And then I was like, I didn't post on Instagram for a month, because I was just like, I don't know what to post. Like I'm feeling like left behind with the whole short form content trend. And I was like, I have a Creator Club community. Like I need to be showing up every single day. I need to be showing my community how to do this.
Yeah.
And I literally was like, what am I good at doing? And I was like, I can pick up my phone every single day and do an Instagram story and talk to the camera so easily. I do it even without even thinking about doing it. And I was like, and I love doing it. And people love watching my stories. That's always been something that the feedback that people give me is, I love watching your Instagram stories. And like all my sales for the Creator Club come through Instagram stories. So I decided my short form content is whenever I'm feeling an emotion, whenever I've accomplished something, or if I'm struggling with something, pick up the camera, record it as if I'm posting it for an Instagram story, face the camera, talk about what I'm doing, how I'm feeling, why I'm doing it, And then from there, that's my short form content.
Mm-hmm.
And then I overlay nice B-roll of if I'm talking about the benefits of ice bath or runs or waking up early or eating a clean diet, whatever it might be. I then get the clips. I film the video first, talking to the camera, and then I go through everything that I've talked about, make a little list, and I'm like, right, I need B-roll for
Mm.
this clip, this clip, this clip. If I'm talking about eating healthy, then I'll take a video of a fruit platter or chicken, broccoli, and rice, and I'll go and get the content myself. Don't use any stock footage.
Mm.
And that's what I've been doing. I've posted every single day now for almost 2 weeks, and people are loving it. Like,
Mm.
and again, this is the thing with short form content is the reels. I was looking at the views and they weren't doing that well. But one thing that I honestly don't care about is views or likes. I just
Mm.
post the content because I feel good posting it. And I know, as you said, it will resonate with some people and they'll enjoy it. And then literally Instagram just sees that I'm posting for 7 days in a row and literally grown 1,000 followers in 5 days. And all the views are literally piling up. People are sharing it, people are saving it.
Mm.
And again, it's just sometimes you paralyze yourself by overthinking and
Exactly.
seeing that everyone else is going into the studio and following this script and making like all this high value content. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, because it feels so unnatural for me to go and do that.
And you want to zig when everyone else is zagging, right? And I think for you, as more of like a lifestyle person, it is important to show your lifestyle, right? You gotta play the game where the consumer's at. If I'm selling to B2B enterprises, I need to have this very educational content. If you're selling to guys that are just getting started and want a good life, you need to be someone who lives a good life.
Exactly. And
So you
that's
need to meet them at that point.
exactly, bro. And that's the thing that I was potentially overthinking is a lot of the people I surround myself with are like, for example, you're selling something that I'm selling a lifestyle, whereas you're selling like an actual product, like a done for you service.
Yeah,
And I am, when it comes down to it, I am actually selling the lifestyle. And I've
of
worked
course.
my ass off to get to this lifestyle that I have now.
And the beauty of that is that you're not doing it in a way that's inauthentic or fake, right?
No,
Because
it's
like
literally I don't do anything that I wouldn't do. Like I don't film
exactly.
stuff that I wouldn't do.
That's the problem with the industry, though, right? Like the make money online industry is like basically just all like Lambos and fake Rolexes, and the reason being is because they think that's what lifestyle is. But this is what actual lifestyle is. You're someone who's working on your health, your fitness, your relationships. You're working on everything, and you do it publicly, and that's what you do better than me. Like I don't share those things as well as I should.
But would you like to? So that was one of my questions. Like because when you showed us the breakdown of your studio, that reel,
Mm,
I loved it. And like I know that you're so dialed in across all aspects of your life. You've got a very strong relationship. You're
mm,
very happy. You're very disciplined. You're in incredible shape. Even when you got into running recently, you were so focused on that. And I would like to see more of like Darren Lee's morning routine, a day in the
mm,
life of Darren Lee, full day of eating. Like
mm.
I know that's the stereotypical videos, but I
No,
like to
not at
see how
all.
other people live their lives.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's just fitting it into the content schedule,
Yeah.
right? Because like if we're releasing a podcast once a week, I need to record at least 1 to 2 a week to stay ahead of that.
Yeah.
And then it's about baking that in. Now I know Chris Williamson has done that well, where he's kind of added in like a few like vlogs and stuff, so on and so forth. And I do want to do that. It's just capacity,
Yeah.
right? Because like what most people don't realize is that like I'm not a creator first, I'm an entrepreneur first, you know? And the irony is we make a lot of our money to do with things that are not associated with me showing up in my story, which is a good position to be in, you know? Like for example, like the sponsorships that we run is not dependent on me. The clients we run is actually not dependent on me anymore. The coaching offer actually is, but you know, so that's why it's quite interesting, right? Because when I wake up in the morning, my day to day is actually usually focused on like driving the business forward.
Yeah.
So it's if I had more time, more capacity, I'd love to. I was kind of leaning more into like the more negative side of things, or the things that don't work out well. Like you share that very openly. You're like, oh, you're struggling with this or whatnot. I struggle with that. If I was to describe why, it probably goes back to that like almost like hiding insecurities when I was a kid. I don't want to be seen as like a failure. You get me?
Yeah.
But like for me, it's always like trying to outdo myself or outdo like the expectations of myself. You get me?
Yeah. I think I potentially definitely overshare, which I read in a psychology book the other day that could also be an issue in itself is oversharing. But I just found that me being honest and sharing my issues, like the majority of the population young guys especially have all the same issues that I have. And when I talk about them, other people are scared to talk about them and they're scared to show their vulnerabilities. And I find that me talking about them lifts the weight off my chest.
Yeah.
Like you know, even I came in today to the kitchen before we even shot this podcast, and I was like, I've had a small problem this morning. We talked about it, and literally, bro, like, you don't understand, but that just lifted it off my chest. Like, I could have held on to that and came into this podcast with you, and I would have been a different person. Whereas just telling you, which it was something slightly embarrassing, but just telling you about it immediately lifted the weight off my shoulders. And I hope I didn't pass it on to you, but it then allowed me to come into this podcast with good energy and to be basically free and be my best self.
Yeah.
And I find that doing that, talking open and honestly about my struggles, about my issues, even though sometimes basically I'm just not scared of people judging me. Like I'm happy to admit, even now, like now that I've cleared it, that I racked up a load of credit card debt in Ibiza. And at the time I was embarrassed about that. Like, again, even when I was an alcoholic in Ibiza, I didn't really talk about it so much then because I was embarrassed. But I think once you overcome it, or if at least you know that you are going to overcome it, then I think it's okay to start talking about it. And I think it's good because, like, if I was still living in Ibiza, drinking beers every day with a load of credit card debt, being an idiot, I don't think I'd be wanting to be too open about it. Like,
yeah, and it's good to do that, like, in retrospective,
yeah,
right? But dude, it works. Like 100%, what you're doing, you're helping other, you're showing people, one, you're not a sociopath, and then two, they relate way more to you. So like people criticize Christian Guzman for oversharing, but like that's why people still watch his videos, right?
exactly.
You get me? Because he is open and honest. I don't know the details of Alpha Lead at the moment, but I know that they're like, they had to do some restructuring, but he's literally sharing everything on YouTube, which I think people don't recommend him doing. But regardless, he's doing it. It's his decision. It's his business. He
Exactly.
can do what he wants, right? So same with alcohol for me. Alcohol for me is actually the most I've shared online. That and hair loss, bro.
Yeah, hair
That's
loss
it.
is a
I have some old hair loss videos. Have you seen those?
no, but
What?
let's talk about hair loss. One thing I want to quickly cover before going to hair loss and alcohol, because this is at the top of my head, what you just said. You were very focused on driving the business. So when I wasn't posting on Instagram, I was all in on my community. Like, basically making sure that my current members are happy and that there's no churn rate, that we hold on to all our members, because that's just as important as bringing in new members,
100%.
especially when people's memberships are renewing every 3 months. So, but what I realized is I was spending way too much time on my community, overthinking everything. I basically had imposter syndrome, and realistically, the community needs maximum 2 hours of work a day, like to actually answer everyone's questions, make sure everyone's happy, check in with everyone, review people's content, plan the call for Wednesday, plan the call for Sunday. It doesn't take more than 2 or 3 hours maximum a day. And this is what you just said is you were driving the business. But what I've realized, especially working with some of the boys in person who are in the Creator Club here, Josh Buffin, he's an accountant, and like a few of the other guys, is they can go into Genesis, which is the studio here, film all their content, a month's worth of content in a day, in 2 or 3 hours, with all these scripts. And then they've got a month's worth of content in 3 or 4 hours. And I'm sitting there scratching my head like, how is this possible? Like, I literally don't understand how they're doing this. Like, and I was almost getting jealous, or like, not jealous, but like confused, like questioning myself that I'm supposed to be the one teaching these guys how to make the content. And they're going in, filming 30 pieces of content in a day, and I'm doing nothing. Like, it fucked me in the head so bad. And I don't think Josh and stuff know this, but I've realized it now. And the thing is, the difference between there's 2 types of people in this world, 100%. There's business guys and there's creatives. The creatives tend to massively overthink. They tend to spend a lot more time on getting things right and potentially don't even post their work. Whereas the people who are creating content for business, it's done, it's filmed, they've got a script, they film the script, they're not perfectionists, they don't overthink it, they know what they need to say, they cut it up, they outsource everything to someone else. They get it all cut up so they don't have to actually do any of the creative work. They use ChatGPT to help them write the scripts. And I'm thinking, fuck, I've literally lost my mind. I don't know how to use ChatGPT. I don't know how to outsource editors. I'm doing this all myself. But what I realized is that there's just 2 different types of people in this world. There's the creators and there's the business guys. And now I brought Josh onto the team and another guy, Kane, who's also extremely business orientated, to help me grow the community on the business side, so I can just focus on the creative side. And my content creation generates the leads, generates the sales, and then the whole business side of things, the growth and like fulfillment, they can take care of that. And I just need to stick to the thing that I'm good at.
100%.
And like even outsourcing the videos. Yesterday, I locked myself in my room for like 9 hours with 6 iced Americanos and stand-up desk, naked, just so people can really picture this. Aircon on, and I just locked in, noise cancelling headphones on, and I didn't leave my room, didn't turn my phone on, and edited a full YouTube video and smashed it out. And I was like, this is what I love to do. As long as I can eliminate the distractions, I don't need to outsource my work. I can do it myself, and I can really enjoy doing it as long as I eliminate the distractions and don't worry about like fear of missing out and stuff. But I think you need to work out in your head, what type of person are you? Are you the creator, or are you the business? And if you are the business type of guy, then you can, again, as what you're doing now with the podcast, you can, it's funny because you're becoming more and more of a creator. Like you're really getting into the cameras, the lenses, the lighting, the audio quality, the process. Like even in the kitchen, you were asking me about the whole process of moving footage and storing the files and all of this stuff. So you're becoming more and more interested in the creative, even though you originally started because of the business. And I think this is just something that people need to kind of be aware of in the very beginning. Are you a business driven person, or are you a creative a creative driven person? And once you work out what you are, you just need to relieve the pressure off yourself. And I think as a content creator, if you just make content, like make the content because you want to make the content, because you want to impact people's lives. You either want to entertain people, provide them with some value, or even just provide them with a nice cinematic visual experience and tell a story. That's fine. Don't worry about the monetization until you've been creating your content, putting it out to the world for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And then the actual monetization will come to you. That's what I've realized. Like I had no idea I was going to have this community. That was never my intention. And then I started doing run clubs. I realized people are asking me questions every single day about how do you do this on YouTube? How do you get this look? How do you change the colors? How do you edit your photos like that? And I realized like I was having run clubs. I was organizing dinners for everyone to meet up and like go out for dinner, have a barbecue, putting people together in WhatsApp groups. I looked through my WhatsApps and I'm the admin in all the WhatsApp groups. And I was like, I love putting people together. I love meeting new people. I love helping people and trying to offer any advice that I could. And that's when I realized like, okay, I'm 31 now. These are the things that I seem to be good at. So what can I do to create something that can basically, that I can enjoy every single day, that people can benefit from? And that's just basically when the community came about.
Perfect timing too, right?
Yeah, bro. And like, again, a lot of people when they're starting this, they're like, oh, like can't wait to get monetized on YouTube. And I'm like, no. That's a red flag. If you are counting down the views or subscribers until you can get your YouTube monetized. Obviously, it's exciting for everyone, like to make their first like dollar online from YouTube. But if your whole intention is to monetize it from just creating content, like vlog style content, storytelling, then you're probably in it for the wrong reason.
And you put it really, really well, which is just understanding where you're at, and then you could always learn the gaps. So like if you're, let's say, a creative person, you can learn how to create offers. You can learn invoicing. You can learn how to run a business too on the back end. But it's like, never forget the main reason why you're here and then lean into that. So Chris Do, he runs The Future. His entire business model is helping more creatives become much more business oriented and vice versa. So that's why for me, this production is much more of like a personal pursuit. And even when sponsors come up for kickoff sessions, I'm just like fucking so lazy about it because I could get my other clients sponsored way faster. So for me, I much prefer to have the freedom to record what I want to talk about, do what I want to do, and use this as my vessel for creativity.
That's such a luxury position to be in, because now I'm also in this position, and I always idolize Mike because he was always in that position where he could say no to brand deals and sponsorships and doesn't have to worry because he's got all his own stuff going on.
Yeah.
And now I'm in the position where my community makes way more than any brand deal or sponsorship. And now I don't need any brand deals or sponsorships. I can literally say and do whatever I want. I work with 2 brands only now, which is Whoop and Ghost, which I have the best relationship with. They allow me to do whatever I want. And I've been with Whoop for 4 years. I've been with Ghost for 5 years. Like, they're the only people that I want to work with. And now I'm just completely unbothered by any other sponsors. And I feel like, bro, it's crazy. Like, when you're a creator, and obviously just last year when I was leaving Ibiza, my whole income was on brand deals and sponsorships. And that's such a vulnerable position to be in, because you could have a bad month on YouTube and your commission gets cut in half. Your affiliate income could literally be like less than half of what it normally is. Like,
So
a brand
were you
can
just doing affiliates or brand or flat rates?
So I would have like flat rates. Luckily with Ghost and Whoop, it was always like commission and a salary. And I would be locked into contracts for at least a year always. But
Good.
like other brands there was no contracts. Like, they can just say, like, if your last ad didn't perform well, maybe put it in a bad YouTube video.
Yeah.
Or like sometimes this is the thing as well. Like, sometimes I would make a really, really good YouTube video and I wouldn't want to put the brand deal or sponsorship in it, because I know that that's going to take away from the video.
Yeah.
Because my audience is the video is going to be disturbed by me selling something to my audience. And that used to annoy me. And Mike used to feel the same. Like, me and Mike have talked about this a lot, is like, do I really want to ruin this really good YouTube video that I've spent a lot of time filming, that I've traveled around the world to film, that I've spent a week editing? Do I really want to ruin it just to put like a Legend London skinny jeans sponsorship in it for like
Such a fucking
800
good point.
quid? And it's like, I like, honestly, now that I don't have to do that, I feel so happy.
And it's so crazy, right? Because you went through the era of like that sponsorship being very small. Like, those sponsorships are pretty small, right? Whereas like the position we're in now for podcasting is that sponsorships have never been bigger. You know, like, we're doing like 8K, 9K a deal, which is fucking crazy, right?
That is crazy.
So what happens there as a result is like you only do it when it makes sense. So for a lot of our clients, they do paid guests. So let's say a startup will pay to get on a show. I don't do it, but some people want to do it. Whatever, I'll sell it. That's usually set at like 8, 9K. People are willing to do it at that price. But to your point, like, it goes back to like sales, right? It's like, can you actually guarantee the results? Can you walk these people down? Can you get longer term partnerships? So I think that's what we were trying to solve for so many years, and thankfully have solved it now, right? Because sponsorships is probably 40 to 50% of our business right now. We're doing anywhere between like 50 to 80K a month in just sponsorships.
It's insane. I'm not taking
a lot
away.
of that now is unpredictable though.
Exactly.
Do you get me? As in, like, we have to hunt for those deals every month.
Yeah.
And we've tried to figure out a way. You'll find this interesting. We have some brand deals with some of the very big companies that are happy with the performance of the shows for the past 2 years, specifically people like the Rob Show, that we're looking to do a year contract. So several drops within that year.
Yeah.
For 2025. And then that's like guaranteed locked in cash. You know, so podcast hosts can record, and then invariably then they're going to get paid like probably like 5 to 10K a month. Some of these shows.
It's really good.
We have some crazy shows, but that's just the average.
Yeah, that's how my whole life was. Just I know that I was making over 10K a month with brand deals and sponsorships, which was amazing. Like, such a fortunate position to be in. Like, again, I don't have the biggest audience, 60K subscribers on YouTube, and like being able to make that amount of money from advertising products. And again, I only worked with brands that I really, really liked.
Yeah.
Like, obviously the skinny jeans was annoying, because it was like skinny jeans were going out of fashion. And this brand had other jeans, like slim fit jeans and baggy jeans, but you weren't allowed to advertise them. You had to advertise the skinny jeans. And like, then everyone just rinsed me in the comments being like, "Oh, Lou, it's 2024 and you're still wearing skinny jeans."
That's so funny.
And like,
right?
that's when I was just like, nah, I can't do this anymore. And again, it's like, I think it's one of the coolest things in the world, getting free products that you actually love, that you actually use, and then you get paid to sell them to your audience. And like, I've never sold anything to my audience that they haven't liked. Like when people buy a Whoop or they buy Ghost, they're like, oh, that's the best pre-workout I've ever had. Or this has literally changed my life and I didn't realize how bad I was sleeping. So like, I feel good that the products that and the companies and brands that I work with actually do help people. But I think it's just such a luxury to be in a position that you can make content and not have to even worry about thinking, is this going to pay for my rent or is this going to put food on the table? Like it's such a good position to be in. And that's why people in the Creator Club, I always tell them like, if you can basically separate your kind of content creation from like your income, like if you already have a stable income and you can just do content creation as a hobby, as a passion, you'll enjoy it so much more. Like it becomes so much more difficult when you quit your 9 to 5 job and you're like, I'm going all in on TikTok, I'm moving to Bali, and like you're relying on these brand deals coming in, you're relying on the monetization for the views coming in, then it puts you under so much pressure and stress to make it work that you're almost overthinking and not creating the best content that you possibly can because there is that financial pressure.
Well, that's why you need to build an offer on the back end, right?
Exactly.
So like, you know, whether you're a creator helping other people become creators, whether you're like me as a podcaster helping other people get into podcasting or run their shows, that's the stability, you know? So the sponsorships can come in and out, but you have a main offer. So that's the biggest thing people ask me when they're starting a podcast is like, how fast can I get sponsorships? It's like, what's the business in the back end? Because that will determine everything. Because the way you should be using content is to generate traffic for your offer in general, right? Whether it's a lifestyle offer, a tactical offer, that's why you're doing it.
Exactly.
Now, you can obviously do it for other reasons, but that's a indirect way to have a benefit from the podcast that most people don't even realize. So it's like you're thinking of the wrong thing. You're literally focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. And like, for example, as well with Mike, the funny thing with Mike as well is that when he was so into fitness and creating like all of the thing that blew Mike's channel up was all the videos of like 5 best exercises for bigger arms, like how to eat 2,500 calories a day, how to meal prep for a week for a certain price. But like once Mike, even then, was just doing a little bit of online coaching, but for the majority was still a personal trainer in person.
Yeah.
And then he eventually went into the online coaching and then he was like, wow, I can't help this many people. Like, I don't have the time to to basically coach all of these people. Like, I just don't know what to do. So then that's when he was like, right, I'm gonna basically not work with anyone one to one, and I'm gonna keep making YouTube content which helps people for free. And then off the back of that, he made his app, and then he was able to help so many more people and like not be so emotionally invested in people one to one. He's now helping way more people for for his actual clients. It's so like his app is literally like 30 quid a month, might be even less. And now he's helping so many more people. He's got so much more reach, and that's all just from the YouTube videos. So like if Mike had went in to online coaching and realized like and he could have made good money from it, but he would have swamped himself and he wouldn't have been able to manage all of them clients. And then he might have stopped posting YouTube videos because he was overwhelmed with the amount of work that he was making, because he was making good money, and then the YouTube videos could have fell off. But actually Mike was just very intelligent with like, I want to help the most people. Like Mike is like, he's not super like money driven. Like he is obviously, he's been very successful, but his intention from day one has always been to help the most people as he possibly could. And I think if your intention is to really help people and provide people with as much value as you possibly can, then the monetization and the money follows.
Yeah, and you have to keep that top of mind. You're even reminding me how much I need to keep that in mind. Like, as in, it always goes back to the podcast, and it's not about like getting the most views. It's about making it as actionable, as insightful, as helpful as possible. So people leave this podcast and are like, "This was super helpful." You know, I trust Louis. This Darren guy's not a bad guy after all, and they're using the content to actually improve their life.
Yeah, because
that's why I'm saying educational content is that a little bit easier.
That's why I watch your podcast.
Yeah.
I watch your podcast because I know that you're super intelligent. You ask really good questions. You have good guests. And I know that by watching your podcast, I'm going to come away and I've learned at least, well, I always learn so much, but at least learn something.
Yeah, like something you can action, right? I think that's what
Exactly.
you need to keep it top of mind all the time, right? So as the creator, like what is that North Star vision? What is it you're creating for? And how do you create all your content around there? And then whatever you want on the back end, this goes kind of our full circle, right? Because all the shit I did when I was younger wasn't able to make money because I didn't have the education. Now that I have the education, I have to give it away through my content to create more of an attention into my actual stuff that I want. So it's just a natural cadence, right? But yeah, we lose sight of it, especially with terms of views. One thing as well is like views aren't a barometer of how many people you're helping, right? Because you can create something that's like super red pill vibes, that's just like ton of views, but it really is helping anyone? No, right? So there needs to be that balance of storytelling and actionable content that may do less views, but it helps the right people.
Yeah.
It's chill.
Right. So we'll get back into it. We'll try not to go over 2 hours because file size and just
forget the file size.
let's be concise. So obviously this business for you now, quickly tell everyone about what your business is now, exactly what you do. It's a podcast business.
So we're helping podcasters grow and monetize their audience. And most podcasters are broke. Most entrepreneurs who run a podcast can't run it. We just solved that problem. So it started out doing full done for you. So we would run everything for the show. And that's like production, editing, design, copywriting, repurposing, managing, growth. And then we did that for so long that we had a bunch of shows that were growing really quickly.
How long have you been doing that for?
Nearly 3 years. But in the beginning, what happened was, or the first year or two, we grew the shows and then they would look at like a big analytics chart and say, oh, that's great, Darren. What are we going to do with it? And that's when we started to add in the monetization. So we were building offers on the back of podcasts for people. Because for me, content and podcasts are just traffic at the end of the day. So now that we have traffic and a validated audience, we can put an offer in front of them. So we started building coaching programs, consulting businesses, agencies, or whatever their business is, to integrate that into their podcast. And that's how it became this kind of growth and monetization element. Now, doing that, you can only work with a certain client. They need to be financially qualified and they need to be committed. So it's usually like a bigger company, or let's say an entrepreneur making like $1 million a year, they can pay the retainer. However, that gave a huge opportunity to build an education platform which teached people how to build, grow, and monetize their show. So that's a huge bucket of people. That's like 99% of the entire world are in that bucket who can't pay $5,000 a month. So they fall into that bracket. So we basically have 2 different offers that get the same result, but you pick your own adventure, right? And that's been literally something that's taken 4 years to build, 5 years to build. So the client side, the agency offer runs really well. There's a full dedicated team for that. Same with the coaching, we have a dedicated team for that. But it's the same methodology. And it always has to start with yourself. So everything that we do started with me and then moved to clients. And then we only teach people what's been working for both of them. And that's the beautiful part of it, right? It has to work for you initially. And we just got the receipts. You know, that's the main thing. And the focus that we're going after with individual podcasters who want to become entrepreneurs is a really nice angle. We're not going after the relationship podcast or the red pill podcast, you know. It's guys who have a business or they don't have a business and they want to start a business, or they are entrepreneurs. They're not entrepreneurs, but they're podcasters who want to become entrepreneurs.
It's actually pretty niche.
Oh, dude, it's super niche. So that's why our content has less views. Our content is more specific, and the content is, there's just less people that hit that criteria. Because you got to think about it. There's 3 million podcasts. Of those that are active is 300,000. It's 10%. Of the 300,000 that are active, half of them are like true crime. Okay. And then of the other half, some are like personal development or whatever. So you have like 100,000 podcasts. Of that 100,000, most of them are non-qualified. So you have like maybe 1% that's qualified, which is 10,000 people. And then of that 10,000 people, you have to sell to, right? So it's a very, very small bracket. You need to find them. They're usually not on YouTube. They're usually on like LinkedIn or whatever. So it's a very small, narrow vertical. But the riches are in niches, right? And this is where like you build a very big business from, because I walk into the sauna now and people are like, oh, you're the podcast guy. And that brand has been highly engineered. And like as time has gone on, like I do other things and there's the offer bills, and there's a lot of like audience stuff, and we do even some like marketing for companies, like more email marketing, but that's not what I'm known for, you know. And now I'm a partner on like 5, almost 10 different podcasts as their business on the back end. Most people don't know that, but it's almost like building like a mini portfolio company of podcasts. It's the same shit, bro. Traffic, validated content, good engagement, good offer, easy to buy. Very simple.
Literally so sick.
But it's just very simple though, you know? And as complexity scales, you can bring more people in for your podcast to run a better business, you know? So whether it's a coaching offer, you might need salespeople. Whether it's an agency, you might need editors or operators or whatever. But it's the same shit. The content has to come on the front end. And that's why I've just always been an organic content guy, because organic content has the highest level of trust.
Yeah.
So it's just so easy to build a business off it as a result.
Very nice. So have you had any businesses that have failed before this? Like
For me,
yeah, I want to know, have you because for me, not that I've had a lot of failures, but I've tried lots of different things, and now I really feel like I've found my thing. Do you think podcast and this business is your thing?
Yeah, for sure. Like the passport app went to zero. Ecom brand went to zero. The raves had to stop because they were just fucking stupid and childish. Like everything went to zero to get to the place that I am now. Like it has to go to zero, you know? And you have to be all in on the vertical that you're doing it. I'm generally quite good at this craft. You're good at speaking, being on camera, working with photography, videography. So that comes natural. There's a skill component there. And then there's also the interest. I like this craft. Probably like the attention to some degree, like we all do. So there's that component too. And then there's the opportunity. Like this industry, everyone talks about crypto, everyone talks about AI. The podcast industry is like this. It's the highest opportunity right now for any other medium. There is no other medium. That's where we're at right now. So as a result, we got caught it in the right position. And I remember when I was very young, I had a sales.
By the way, like literally the most perfect timing ever, I think.
Most perfect, right?
Like podcasts are literally just gonna like literally go to the moon. Like everyone wants to do a podcast, I think.
And the reality is, in 2020, everyone wanted to do a podcast because they were bored and lonely. Now everyone wants to use it as a business. So that's the way it has to be situated, is that you were doing this as a marketing channel for your business. So when I was young, when I was in university, I had a sales module. This guy, John Goulding, came in and he sat down and he was like, yep, I have this company called Work Vivo. We just sold to Zoom. They sold to Zoom for like 2 billion. He was from Cork, this guy.
Wow.
And he said his last business went to zero before that. And the reason being is because you can be the best entrepreneur in the world in the wrong market and it's a losing tide. You're always going backwards. Whereas you can be a shitty entrepreneur in an uptrend and you will make it. Because it's not dependent on you. You're not that special. Timing is super important. So the fact that we were one of the first people to say video podcasts would pop was true. We got it right. Then we were the first people to action video podcasts on YouTube with short form. We got that right. And the next stage was we were the first people to say that short form content would go to LinkedIn. And it was right. And everyone who has a podcast who creates highly actionable tactical content can run it through LinkedIn and they kill it. They literally kill it. The 3 different stages of our growth, I've called all of them 2 years beforehand and every one of them came correct. Every single one of them. And the reason being is because I don't have my head anywhere else. I just have my head so close to this market that generally most people copy what we do, but they copy it with a lagging indicator of 12 months behind. It's hilarious. And like I don't give a shit. Like I feel free calling it out because a lot of people who are like more friends have just copied the same model, but they can't operate at the same level because they don't have the same level of attention. One of our clients was here the other day and he complimented our team because he said he's never met a team who want it so badly. And I responded saying that all of our team are willing to go to war for this because they all just fucking love it. And then they're willing to learn what they need to learn. So it's a very interesting dynamic, right? Because most people are copycats, right? And they're watching what someone else is doing, but you can't replicate that.
No, you can't. That's one thing that I noticed as well with the community. Like so many people message me, oh, like I'm interested in starting a community. I'm really inspired by what you've done. I would love to do one myself. And like when I first started my community, I was a little bit worried, like, oh, this is so easy for other people to copy. Now that I'm like 7 months in, like,
But they can't copy what's in here, though.
yeah, they
You get me?
can't.
They
And
can't copy that. You have that desire.
exactly, bro. Like, I'm absolutely not worried whatsoever. People have no idea what goes into actually running a community and how much I put into it, because I genuinely care. And like, people who think it's just a good business model, which it definitely is a good business model, they just have no idea what it actually entails.
Of course, right? And that's why surface level information brings in all these like average people, right? It's the opposite of the cursor granted knowledge. Cursor granted knowledge is what you know you don't think is valuable, but it's extremely valuable. But these people are the opposite. So it's the same with us, right? People don't realize that even though I do all this podcast and stuff, my business is built off cold email. Like at the end of the day, I can send really fucking good emails and I can run sales calls. I just like it and I'm good at it, right? So this morning before you came over, it's 12 now. I had a sales call with a crypto company that are like launching crypto is like really big for podcasts right now. It was a 1 hour long demo at 6 a.m. this morning. And I finished my calls last night at midnight, got back up at 5:40, took my dogs for a walk, came back, was on sales calls all morning. And like that's the gap, right? Like no one realizes that's the gap. Everyone sees me around Bali, my yellow fucking hair, like, oh, it must be so easy. It's like, no, like I've taken thousands of sales calls in the past couple of years. I've bombed most of them. So that's the years you can't replicate. And funny you mentioned about like the replication, because outside we have like my villa outside. I want to set this up outside the pool. And I'm going to do like an evening session, maybe 6 p.m. We do a sunset podcast and the sun coming in.
That'd be sick.
And I want to put up a photo being like, try to replicate this.
Yeah.
Because to replicate that, you need to have gone through the 4 fucking years of me being in torture pain, making no money, leaving my job, getting the first client, losing clients, not getting paid on invoices, like trying to figure shit out, like trying to figure everything out. And like the snapshot you see of us here today is a literal representation of all the sacrifices made. And you can't replicate that. People will try to pretend to do that. You can't, man. That's why I'm so confident on long form, because you, whether you like me or not, you can see very clearly how much I'm in it by these conversations. Exactly. And that's why people hide on short form. They hide in their tweets. They hide in their posts. Whereas I've nothing to hide, dude. Like it was an extremely torturous journey. We're doing 6 figures a month consistently now. It's very difficult. It's very stressful. We're trying to get to 200K a month right now. And it's extremely hard. And most people will never get there because they're not willing to do it. You know?
So
and it's torturous.
This
Bro,
leads
it's
directly
very,
on.
very difficult. Like, you know, it's very, very hard.
People just don't get it. And this leads directly on to my next question, which I've kind of, obviously, over the last week, I have literally been the most locked in I have ever been in my life. Like, even when I did the 200 days sober, I was locked in. But like, even now, so especially with Cindy not being here in Bali, not having any single distractions. And I told you, like, did it like 5 days in a row, just locked myself in my room with the iced Americanos, with the aircon on, standing desk, curtains closed, like working from, I do my exercise in the morning and then work from like 8 a.m. And then I eat my first meal at 3 p.m., have 1 hour break at 3 p.m. And then it's like 4 p.m. until 1 a.m. grinding. And like, people think they want to escape the 9 to 5, but they don't realize like you escape the 9 to 5, but you work way harder and way more.
Work to 8 to 8.
Exactly. And like, so people just don't understand that. Like, people don't get that. And like, I think we're very fortunate that we have basically endless opportunities. And like, bro, I always tell people like my to-do list is never going to be finished. And I'm sure yours is exactly the same. Like we could never stop working. Like there's always something to be done, always something to be improved, always a video that could be cut up into short form, or like there's always something to do, which I absolutely love. And I think that's a luxury for sure. So I want to ask you a little bit about, because I know you're, as I said at the start of the video, you're intense, you're a workaholic, you love to work. So you said this morning you woke up after 5 hours sleep, you walked the dogs and straight into sales calls. So I think this is a topic for a lot of people. You're obviously in a relationship, married. What's your work-life balance like? How do you find time for the gym, find time for the dogs, find time for Elise, find time to actually enjoy, relax, turn off? Like
integration.
Because I know that you go to the gym, but I can't just imagine you turning off.
So for me, it's all integrated together. So I only do things that go towards like the mission. So like we have big goals for the business. We're nowhere near there yet. I think we can get there in 2026. But for me to make, for me to hit the numbers I want to hit in the business, and even with our podcast specifically as well, because I want to get that to the next level. I want to get to 100K pretty soon. Piss me off that I'm not. I have to make sacrifices, which are going to be around the fringes. That's going to be like random friends on the outskirts, random coffees that are going nowhere. They're easy to cut down. But then I need to do things that move myself towards the goal. So like you'll be 100% correct in saying this, that my relationship moves me closer to the goal. Like Elise is behind the mission, and everything that I do is working in tandem with her, you know, the entire time. She'll review some copy, she'll review some feedback I get from like random emails. If I see an email coming from a client, I'll ask her for feedback and whatnot. But she's always been there as part of that journey, and she's there on the way up as well. And the beautiful part about that with a relationship is that Elise was never been there with me for the goals, like the tangibles, the end result, or let's say like the luxuries. She's not there for the luxuries, right? Like everything that's happened as a result, like the beautiful villa and the house and the travel, just comes as a result of us working together. But she's more interested in me working on something that I'm interested in. Because to your point about being a workaholic, absolutely. Like if I was working in a shitty job, 9 to 5 job, I would still want to do a great job. So I want to pick the right thing that I'm doing. And now the fact that I'm working on stuff that I really enjoy and it's generating a lot of good results, the feedback loop is so positive that she is there as part of it. So, you know, like Leila Hormozi has Alex has Leila. That's like the perfect like combination. Whereas they're both kind of in a very logical role. For me and Elise, it's much more like a logical and emotional. So I'm just high logic, solve problems with logic. She's much more emotional. And then you need to be able to understand how you help her, she helps you, vice versa. So because I never had like a proper like, you know, united family growing up, like I just did not have that like at all. I really want to focus on having that. So, and I said that to Elise, I say it quite regularly, which is like, I want to be there for her when we're having breakfast together in the morning, in the evening, when she's upset, when she needs support. Like I want to like physically be there for her. And I can do that from the lifestyle that I have and the business that I have. I have an office, which I call the dungeon. So I go into the dungeon, I fucking bang out what I need to do, and I work on that component. So I'm always a morning person. So I'll get in, I'll start at 6 a.m. I'll do 6 to 10. Elise will wake up at 10. Elise doesn't need to work. I'll always like be responsible for her. She can do whatever she wants, but she doesn't want to work. So she'll wake up at like 10. We'll have breakfast together, and then we'll go to the gym together, and then we train together. And like, because I'm such like a fucking all-in person, I actually had to teach her how I train so that we're actually training for improvement. We work together in terms of like for training. We eat together, we have lunch together, we come back maybe 1 or 2 in a day, and then I will go off and work again in the dungeon. We might go for like a dinner in the evening, something very like simple, but go for dinner in the evening, and then I'll come back and do my nighttime sales calls. Because I work US time zones. So I'll do calls at 6 a.m., I'll do calls at 6 p.m. forward as a result. And that's the integration, right? And like what we talk about is kind of things to do in my business, right? Because like I don't really like, so like me and Elise, our commonalities are like dogs, number one, lifestyle, like kind of freedom, travel, do what we want. We're both kind of like rebels, right? So as a result of that, we kind of talk about that shit, and like dogs kind of fit into that kind of approach as well. So we've both have like a love for dogs. And then if we're not talking about that, I would just be getting kind of feedback from her, like sharing some wins with their business and whatnot. And she wants to see me succeed, right? Versus like, you know, some guy who lives in Dubai who gets with some like chick from Russia, and then she just wants his cash and he just wants to use her because she's pretty. Like that's not a relationship, bro. You know, it's not a relationship you should aspire to be in. And the best part is that me and Elise were together from the very, very beginning, way before the podcast. So she's seen like everything, you know, and that's why it works.
Yeah, I think that's really, really insightful. And I think to a lot of people that might sound quite extreme. But if you want extreme results, you need to live an extreme life, I think. And like that's the thing that so many people like. I hope that some people do listen to this and be like, I don't want to be like Louis or Darren. I don't want to have to lock myself in my room or the dungeon and work. I don't want to have to do that. And like, I think that's completely fine. You can live just a normal life but you're not going to get those extreme results unless you have extreme disciplines and
Of course.
extreme work ethic.
So rough roads end smooth, smooth roads end rough for that exact reason. So I've seen firsthand in Ireland people who took the easy life, took an easy job, went to the pub, watched the football, watched the Gaelic, and then ended up having a terrible end of life because they ate badly, smoked, drank, took drugs, didn't focus on their money. So their health, wealth, and relationships were all fucked up, right? Whereas like for me, my relationship is a very, very important part of my entire life. So I literally work on it as if it's a fucking business all the time. We make time for it and everything. On the wealth side, I spoke with someone recently being like, technically, we could actually retire for quite a while. In a few years, I could retire for a good bit. Put it that way. I don't want to, but I'm saying that leads me to have a better decision-making process. When I have a sales call with someone and they want to kind of, move on price, if I don't like it, I just say no. Whereas I'm not like in that scarcity mode. So that feeds into my relationship. Okay, so the wealth moves into the relationship moves into the wealth because they're both moving in tandem. I think most marriage problems are down to financial decisions anyway. And the last side is the fitness side, which for me, my background was in bodybuilding. I've done shows in the past. It's not like a key focus right now, but having my health really high priority, feeds into both because I'm less stressed, I'm more relaxed, I can make better decisions, I build a better business, a calmer business, and then for my relationships too, I look better, right? More conscientious of how I look. So that fucking pyramid needs to be front and center for everyone. And I completely disagree with the approach that like every entrepreneur should build up their wealth, then focus on the relationship afterward. I think it's a terrible idea.
Yeah, I think that's terrible advice too.
The business analogy of that is like, just building the business and then not getting sales. It's like, no, bro, like things have to work together. And that's why you need to work with someone who's a good partner, e.g., a romantic partner who will help you in that pursuit, right? Who's going to be there for you because, like, it's not a horse and cart scenario. That's not how this works.
No.
And I spoke with Sahil Bloom. You know Sahil Bloom?
Yeah.
About this. Like, his new book is going to come out soon, and we're releasing a podcast around his book pretty soon too. And I told him about this. He's a little bit older than you. He's 34, and I said, what do you think about guys who don't get into relationships because they're building wealth to then get into a relationship when they have the wealth? And he just goes, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my fucking life. He's a very reserved guy. He looked at me and he goes, whoever's telling you that, run. He's married, 5 years, he has a kid, pretty well put together. He's making like 10 million a year. You listen to someone like that. So I think it's important to listen to people who have the receipts that you want in that domain. So, I'm not a relationship coach, but I take advice from people who have relationships for 10, 20 years, right? That are married, that are entrepreneurs. Similarly with health, you look at Rob, Mike, or whatever. And then with the wealth side, you look at people who have the receipts you have. And you have to find a nice marriage between the two. Because there's many guys who have a lot of wealth, but are fat as fuck, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think one thing that I found as well, especially over the last year, like being so focused on self-development and self-improvement, is that I see so many people now being self-destructive and like constantly repeating the same cycle, bad habits, and like I get so frustrated watching them. And like it's not that I judge them, it's just that I know that I actually feel sorry for them because I know now myself after living a good life for a year and basically erasing all the bad habits and being so focused on myself that your life just changes in so many ways and you just feel so good about everything. And sometimes it frustrates me watching other people now just be self-destructive and knowing that it's actually so easy to fix. And that's why I love the Creator Club as well, because people, when they join or when they message me, that's when they're ready to make those changes.
Yeah.
And that's the best position to be able to help someone, I think. But one thing I want to quickly ask you about there is saying no to the coffees that go nowhere. Yeah. And like, that's all about setting boundaries. And this is something that I'm kind of only just learning to do now. And it sounds very kind of a little bit selfish, maybe a bit egotistical, that you would just say no to having a social coffee with someone because it's not going anywhere. But like, the reality is, like, if you are a busy guy and you need to make time for your wife, for your partner, for your girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever it might be, for your family, for your business, for the gym, like, you can just lose an hour or two to your life to a coffee with someone that maybe has an intention and it is of no benefit to you. So like, how do you politely say no to those people? How do you decline those invitations in a way that doesn't hurt people? And like that's one thing I'm trying to learn to do, but
Yeah.
kind of struggling with.
So it depends where you are in your life, right? So I'm married. I have a large business. I have a lot of full-time employees. I run a podcast. So my network is around the podcast. You know, I'm always interviewing people. So like, I'm not like lonely, right? Put it that way. I have a lot going on. So I'm not like I'm not in a phase whereby I need to go meet loads of people. Now, the people that I eventually meet are kind of through the similar buckets that I'm doing. So podcasters, creators, entrepreneurs, and you know, the cream rises to the top. So you meet the people you're meant to meet at that point. Now, of course, you can meet whoever you want, but it just goes back to a time thing. If you are in a relationship, you need to put time into that. If you have a business, people are paying you, bro. You got to fucking deliver. So that's the next focus. And your health, that has to be intact so it doesn't fall apart. And then with the excess time you do have, yes, you need to make time for friends and so on. So we're going to a Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday. You know, my wife is American. A lot of my friends are American too. So like that's an important thing for me. So I can go and dedicate that. I smoke way too much cigars. So last weekend we went to a cigar bar, met a bunch of great people. So it was like we get the most out of it. I met like 12, 14 different people. They were super interesting guys. One guy's like a tax strategist. One guy is like a email marketing guy for a lot of Dorian Yates and stuff. So really cool people. So you need to like nearly optimize that time, right? Because if I'm just shooting individual bullets, like coffee here, coffee here, coffee here, it's not 1 hour, it's actually 4 hours because you plan it the day before, you go to bed thinking about it, you ruminate on it, you wake up and you're like, fuck, I gotta get this work done. You stress through work, you get there, and it's not natural. Whereas you could take those calls in person. You just call someone, call them on WhatsApp if you really want to, right? And it depends on what it's feeding into. And it's just a reality, right? And I always kind of wondered about that too when I was asking people to come on my podcast. And I was like, oh, why don't these guys want to like have like a coffee chat or whatever? And it just comes down to a time thing. Because time is the only thing that's really finite. The rest of it is flexible, you know? And if you don't know what your top 3 priorities are for the day, then this stuff will fester in. So the fact that you're doing the run club, if someone says to you, hey, let's go for a coffee, my response would be like, hey, I'd love to, but I'm slammed with commitments that I have for my clients and my customers, my community. You can come to the run club, and if you don't like running, you can come afterwards.
That's what I tell people now.
Just come
But,
afterwards,
yeah,
you know,
that's what I've
and we
been
can have a
doing.
chat afterwards, and I'll personally chat to you there. So that makes the most out of it as a result. So for me, what I'm doing in this instance is I get a lot of requests for calls with people for their podcasts, but they're kind of unqualified. Like they're not going to join our programs. So I'm always like, hey, I'll hop on a podcast with you and I'll go on your show and we'll do 60 minutes and I'll coach you on the show and we'll talk about other shit too. And it's great. People love it. People actually love it, you know, because it's the best use of their time, best use of my time. I do like 5-10 shows a month now at the moment. And they're
Really
my
good.
coffee chats, you know?
And that's like when we're in here, people don't realize, so many people don't, like, literally are so unaware of this. But when we're having this conversation, we are so locked in on each other, how it used to be without phones, without any distractions. Like, you go meet someone in a coffee shop, you've even got your phone on you. Like, I had a few notes on there. That's the only reason it's there. But like, they're not like intense conversations. Like,
That's what I hate
you're looking at
meeting
your
people
phone,
like
you're
that.
looking at the waiter in the cafe, someone else is getting your attention. Like, it's not like a deep connection like what this is. And this is why this is so intense.
I love
Like,
it, man.
after a podcast, you're tired.
Exhausted.
Yeah.
Exhausted, dude. And that's the level of focus that you need. That's why I resonate so much with it, because of that singularity focus. We've built a really great relationship, and I really value our relationship, man. And it's cool because I used to watch you for so many years, you know. But it's just like, yeah, Louis coming over. I'm like, sick.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for that podcast.
No, bro, it's insane. And like, like that was the first, I think the first real podcast that I ever did.
And I even saw how your eyes lit up afterwards, because I never push my like opinion on people like, oh, they should do a podcast, whatever. But I can often see when their eyes open to the idea. They're like, wait, what? I just speak to people that I already talk about, and the content that's struggling so much for me to create, I can just create it myself and help more people.
Yeah, that's sick.
So whether it's an entrepreneur or a creative, I can literally see the cogs turning in your head, being like, yeah, this is a much better way for me to do this.
Sick.
And think about you now, right? With this show, when you go to Marbella, who can you interview there? Like Dorian Yates, all those guys that are based in Marbella. You can go to Portugal. You can go to wherever. So the funny part is like for me now, I can just show up to cities and be like, who's in the city? Quick filter search. Okay, these guys, this guy, this guy. Who knows the person there? Who can I message? And just do 2 or 3 podcasts.
So sick. I honestly think it's one of the best things in the world. Right, final question before we wrap up. You obviously live in Bali. We all kind of live in Bali and we love it here.
Mm.
And like one of the biggest issues that young guys and girls come to me with is that they want to get out of their hometown because they feel stuck. They feel trapped. They feel like no one gets their vibe. They feel like no one understands them. What is your advice on basically getting out of your hometown, and like how much do you think it's benefited you living in Bali, traveling the world, like opening your mind? What's your advice to someone who's kind of struggling to get out of their hometown? Do you think it does hold them back? Like
100%.
would you be in this position now if you had stayed in Cork? Like,
Fuck no.
what's your experience with that?
Everything is data. Every single piece of signal is data. The book is data. Camera coming out is data. Everything is a piece of information that can influence your next direction. So if you're influenced by people in your hometown are talking about the pub and talking about like partying and the gossip and the bakery that's going out of business, that's your life. Your life is literally what's in front of you. It's literally visceral. So you can create that and create more information that comes into your brain by being somewhere else.
By being exposed to it.
By being exposed to it. It's exposure therapy. The biggest thing to get over something, if you're struggling, is actually exposure to that element. If you're scared of dogs, you go pet dogs. You need to be exposed to that component. Now, where we're from, Ireland and the UK, it's very backward mentality for boomers. They're like, oh, you got to stay here, whatever. But the younger generation that do open their head goes back to the beginning, which is everything that I was told was actually incorrect, that I can go create this new world for myself. And I experienced a lot of it when I was traveling in Europe, that I liked it, but Europe traveling is beautiful, but it's expensive. And 2, it's not like travel. It's a city. I'll never fucking forget it. Flew to Bangkok, first time being to Asia. I came out of Bangkok airport, just out to the arrivals. And I opened up that door, sliding door, so that I left the aircon. And I just got hit with the humidity, the sound, and the smell of Asia. I was hooked. And that was like 5 years ago. My brain never, ever came back. I genuinely swear in the bottom of my heart, it was that moment. I could smell it. The honking of the street, people screaming at me, trying to sell me fucking fish. And I fucking loved it. And I was just hooked on it. That even when I went back to finish university, I couldn't get it out of my head. And I kept coming back and back and back. So then the whole goal was just to get back to Asia, basically. And now, like, I never take it for granted. Even when I'm riding around with fucking no shoes, no helmet, my hair blowing back, I always try to appreciate that moment, like the moments in time, because like these are the best moments. But this is the best moment of our life, right? And it's been everything for me. And like, even like my wife is, I always said when I was younger, I'd never, ever, ever date someone from Ireland, ever. Just so backward. You know what I mean? Like everyone's like going home for Christmas. Fuck that shit. Like I'm just so different than that, right? I'm just like, that's just not part of like what I do, that I couldn't have that data coming into me. So like my wife is American, similar values to me for travel, exploration, doing cool shit, to the point that you create a new world, a new reality. So my advice is get that first 5K to just cover you. Get to Asia, preferably maybe Thailand in the beginning. Do your reps in like the islands. Go cheap as fuck. Do some backpacking, but backpacking with the idea of like building something you want to build, right? And then allow that data to come in, and just don't go back, right? That's the thing, is that everyone's like, I'm gonna come back to Asia. It's like, no, you're not. Like when you go home, you're gonna go back to the same thing. Your mom's gonna make you like spaghetti, and you're not actually like progressing as a human. Whereas when I was here, the more time I spend here, the more data that comes in that's positive, and then that allowed me to build a better podcast, a better business, have a better life, and so on. And all of my thoughts to this point genuinely come like organically, because I'm consuming very little content externally, apart from business content. That when I wanted to build a studio, I came into this room and I was like, I want to do this, this, and this. And I genuinely don't give a fuck about what other people think about that process, because I just love it. So you get to that point of like independence with experimenting. And yeah, man, like along the road, it's not pretty. You lose a lot of people on the road, right? But if you are an individual, which you are, and a sovereign individual, you will find your own things that you really do love the more time you're on your own. And that can be with a partner too, or with a close friend, but you have to be exposed to it, dude.
Yeah, but I think like because whenever I went back to the UK, like a couple of months ago, me and my mum just argued a little bit about like just my whole mindset is the opposite to hers.
Mhm.
And my mum's like, oh, well, why do I need to go and travel the world or go and do this if I'm just happy here? But like the reality is she is happy, but I think she's more so content.
Yeah.
And like
Comfortable.
it's comfortable. And it's not that I like, she's not, my mum's not old or anything, but like, I mean, I think it's such a shame to live your life in the comfort zone. Like my mum's scared of driving out of a certain radius of our small town. Like
Yeah.
she can't pick me up from the airport because she's scared to
Mhm.
drive outside of the airport. And like my whole mindset, what I've learned over the recent years is do the things that make you uncomfortable, do the things that scare you, because that's when you feel the greatest sense of reward. And
The
like,
biggest border is like push that border. You know what I mean? And like that can be going somewhere, starting something, sending a DM, doing something. Like usually the resistance is the way. So where there's a bit of resistance, you want to lean into that, no matter what it is. So whether that's like the girl at the bar, like go up and say something that's not nerdy, like lean into that resistance. But I think social conditioning in the UK and Ireland has brought about this environment whereby everything outside of that is bad. The EU is great, Ireland's great, stay here, it's safe. It's like, bro, those people are fucking miserable. Miserable. Fat, lazy, broke, bald. And they're everywhere. And I call it the Tesco test. You walk around Tesco, everyone's fucking miserable, bro. Whereas you come here, or you go to Asia, who've picked their own adventure. And when you choose your own adventure, yeah, it's difficult and it sucks and there's problems and so on. But at least it's on your terms. Like if I go to zero, one, I've acquired all the skills so I can get it back. And then two, it was of my own decision, and I can live with that. Whereas I can't really live with the idea of, this is so funny. Like when I started these corporate careers, I was young, so I was more open to the idea of like, having to ask for vacation or ask to go to the toilet or whatever that may be, because I was like 20, right? But now that I'm like 28, I'm like, so you ask your boss when you don't have to work. I'm like, you're fucking joking me. And the reality is it only gets worse with time because you're sucking someone else's dick to become a partner or a managing director or whatnot. And it's like, okay, so now you're 40 years old asking someone for permission to go see your kid's football game. I will never be in that position.
yeah. And it sounds harsh, but I think it's the harsh reality. And that was the number one thing for me is, oh my God, that I hated about the 9 to 5 so much is holiday days, or like having a
Oh,
set lunch break that you've got an hour between these times and these times. And like, I just think that is honestly all complete bullshit, like
all
beyond
bullshit.
belief.
But it's also not real, right? Because it was all manufactured back for the manufacturing during the Industrial Revolution when they tried to create power plants. They had to create a weekend, so workers had time off. So it's actually an illusion. And like a lot of these things are optics, they're an actual optical illusion. Like you don't actually need a break. You can, if you're enjoying it, you can just work on something whenever you want to work on it. We could do this at the weekends. We don't need to
You can
wait
do
for
this
the weekend.
anytime.
So it's a mirage basically. And same with like the golden handcuffs and shining a carrot of like a promotion in front of someone. It's all a mirage, man. Genuinely. And that may seem like kind of conspiracy theory vibes, but it was created in a way for you to act in a certain way. And if you don't do it, then you're pushed to the side. And they create a culture in these companies, the super big companies, that if you're not inside that culture, you're an outcast, which was me. And that's the reason why I'm talking about this, is because I was that person. I told you the Thursdays. When I worked for a company in Dublin, big consulting company, it was so fucking weird. They wanted everyone to eat together at lunch. So now you work all day together, but you have to eat together with people. Okay? Weird, right? And it was because we were consultants, we were on a job, it was awful. But because I wanted to stay fit, guess what I did on my lunch?
Gym.
No, because I did my gym at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Ate salad.
Did my steps. 60 minutes of walking around Dublin City was the equivalent of like 7,000 steps, which would finish my steps for a day. And that was a difference.
That's literally the most typical Darren Lee thing.
But
ever.
that's a difference though, right?
Yeah.
Do you get me? It's like I was told I had to sit and be with these people. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not doing that. And it's just funny, right? Because you look at the end result, you think it's easy for him to say, you know, he got lucky or whatever. But it's all those like micro decisions along the way that all add up at the end of the day.
Sick. Right. Last thing, because we said we'd pick it back up just very quickly. But I think this has been absolutely unreal, bro. Like, thank you so
Pleasure,
much.
man.
And honestly, shout out to Darren. Like, go and check out his business. I think he's really, really adding a lot of value, helping so many people. Like, go and check out his podcast, check out his YouTube, check out his Instagram. I think Darren is absolutely smashing it. And bro, you literally inspire me so much.
Man, likewise.
And again, like even this studio, we're in Darren's house. Like this is his setup. It's fucking sick. And it just shows that if you're really passionate about something and you really love something, and you really care about it, it'll take you wherever you want to go with it. But final thing, before we finish, we were talking about hair loss. And this is something that the only reason I want to pick this back up is because it's something that I thought about yesterday. And I was messaging Joel about it. And I was like, bro, like, let's just go next year and, sorry, Joel, if you didn't realize. Let's just go to Turkey next year and get our hairline fixed. And like, because I was thinking about it and like, it sounds so stupid, but like, I am very, 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 very unbelievably fortunate that I pretty much don't have any insecurities, like really at all. Like, and again, that's partly because I know, obviously, I don't want to sound like a big-headed bellend here, but I'm lucky genetically. Like, I can get tanned, I can get jacked, I can push my body to where I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But my hairline, I find myself wearing a hat a lot because I'm conscious of my hairline or how my hair looks. And like when you're on the motorcycle blowing in the wind, and if you catch a glimpse of yourself and you're like, fuck, is my hairline receding even more? It's something that I'm conscious of. And it's not that I'm super insecure about it, but I even notice like if I'm in the ice bath and I do a dunk and then I push my hair back, I'm like, fuck, my hairline looks literally terrible here. And it's something that I'm just aware of every single day.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't bother me to the point where like I'm worried about it or I lose sleep over it or I really, really care about it. But it's something that I notice almost every single day. And in this day and age, obviously I'm a little bit against kind of surgery and all of that stuff to the point where you make yourself look like you no longer did before. Yeah. And like, especially if you don't tell people that you've had surgery and then they have kids with you and the kid looks like completely different. I think that can be a bit fucked up. So I do have certain views and opinions on that. But I definitely think if you have a small insecurity that can be easily fixed with a hair transplant or a small piece of surgery, and that's going to put you at peace every single day, and you're not going to be overthinking it. You're not going to be checking the mirror every 2 seconds to see the position of your hair. Like, I think just go for it and help yourself and put yourself at peace.
Yeah,
and like,
for
sure. Anyone who's conscious of their hairline will notice that I'm conscious of my hairline, but anyone who doesn't even think about it will not even notice it.
So I think a few things there. The fact that you are starting to see it is good because now it's the best opportunity to work on it. So I'm really deep in the hair rabbit hole. Like, dude, like I have loads of YouTube videos that like 400,000 views, bro.
Really?
Yeah. So like they were my first videos to pop off. It was because I went so deep on hair that basically I just learned it. Like I learned what I need to do. So the best analogy is like grass. Patch your grass outside. If the grass is starting to get a bit yellow, you can put fertilizer on it, you can fix it. But there comes a point whereby you can't fix it. So everyone has around 100,000 hair grafts, and you only notice it until you start losing like 40%. You're down to 60,000 left. But that's the only time that you can really work on it to fix the whole thing. That's through medication. Okay? So that's the time where you can rebuild the hair loss. Now, there's a few points here. If you want to get a hair transplant, you can't get it too young because you're going to start still receding as time goes on, so early 20s. You can't get it too old because then you've lost too much recession. You can't redeem it. So there's like that very strong sweet spot, which is like you need to be able to get enough hair from the back to be able to fill it out and not lose hair in 10 years' time. So I think Mike did a really good view on this. He got it done when he was like 27, 28.
Yeah.
About 5 years ago. So it worked really well for him. However, for me, so when I had that problem in my leg, I went on those blood thinners when I was 18. Blood thinners lead to hair loss. So I started to lose loads of hair. So that's when I started to lose a lot of my hair when I was really young. That when I turned 20, I tried to get a hair transplant. They said you're too young for it. But what they did tell me was that if I go on if I get a hair transplant at whatever age, I have to go on finasteride afterwards. So no matter what stage you are in your life, and that's why if you're in your 30s, you can't go on finasteride when you're trying to conceive and have children. You have to come off it. And finasteride has a half-life. So this is the logic. If you're losing your hair in your 30s, and if you want to have kids, you technically can't get a hair transplant because the finasteride isn't kicking in. They'll still sell it to you, but you can't, logically. And I went to BlackRock in Dublin for this as a consultation, and they were the best clinic probably in Europe that are authentic, that are real. And the place Mike went to in London, I checked out too as well. So the logic on this is, if you want to get a hair transplant, you still need to go on finasteride. But before you get a hair transplant, you could also go on finasteride, which would inhibit the chemical to lose hair, the component in your head, which is called DHT, dihydrotestosterone. It will prohibit that. So finasteride will allow it to block that. And if the finasteride starts working, you, one, regrow your hair, and two, you may not even need a hair transplant. But if you did get one, you could also stay on finasteride. So it's like a positive. The drawbacks of finasteride is that you might have some negative side effects. It's common people have like issues with their dick and shit, but you gotta test it out, right? You get me? So it's different per person. I've never had any. I've been on it 3 years and I've had no side effects from it. But finasteride is pretty strong, as you can tell. So the first step on that is ketoconazole. So ketoconazole shampoo, which I need to go off because of my hair being dyed. So that slows down hair loss. And then, so if you imagine like a stream of water, the stream slows down because of ketoconazole shampoo. And then the finasteride comes up and blocks it. And then if you don't respond to either one, you can do the nuclear decision, which is minoxidil. Because the problem with minoxidil is that you can't come off minoxidil.
Is that the drop shit that you drop onto your head?
Yeah, that's like Rogaine or whatever. So people say minoxidil is a step 1, but it's actually not. It's a step 3.
Okay.
Because minoxidil means that you'll have a shedding phase and then you'll have a regrowth phase. But your hair will always depend on the minoxidil cycle. Make sense?
Yeah.
So that's like the big tree, it's called. So I've been running 2 of those for 3 years. I haven't used minoxidil because I don't need it. However, with my hairline right now, because my hair is super long, I don't want to get a hair transplant anymore. So as a result of doing that, I want to do PRP. So PRP is platinum-rich plasma. So they take your blood, they separate out the red blood cells, they put it through a centrifuger, they spin it, and they inject it into your hair. So that's like the highest quality you can do that doesn't fuck up like your body and so on. However, when I went to get it done, what he said was, which you don't learn online, is that red blood cells are obviously different for everyone. Like yours could be richer than mine could be worse or better than yours. So as a result of that, we could do this procedure and we may not get the result that we want, which is regrowth hair. So instead, he recommended me stem cells. So it was called sertraline begins with S, sertraline, something like this. Stem cell, which is a specific stem cell for hair growth, which has 100% effectiveness, depending on your hair. So because I have started to regrow my hair a lot because of finasteride, I have a low amount of hair loss, so therefore that can get rejuvenated. So I just go pop, pop, pop. I do 1 injection every 2 weeks for 8 weeks, and then 1 injection every 6 months, and then 1 injection every year. Keep on top of it. And that's it. And honestly, like that's the stack. So like instead of jumping to turkey and looking like a fucking turkey for 2 years, you could just do like stem cells or PRP. That could work on its own. You can get a DHT test. It's not possible in Indonesia. It's not a test that's approved in Indonesia.
Yeah.
But a DHT test will test how responsive your body is to dihydrotestosterone, which shows you how much finasteride can be effective for you. Now, I never got it, but I just went on finasteride and it was effective. So you can do that. But they're your plays. But this wasn't available, bro, until like 5 years ago.
So sick.
Dude, I'll show you photos of my hair. Like I lost all my hair back here.
Really?
Like 3 years ago.
Wow. There you have it. All your hair loss tips also answered. That's a bonus. It's a bonus for anyone who listened to the...
That's inside my program.
Yeah. But yeah, bro, thank you so much for today. I've absolutely loved this. And like, honestly, me and Darren I have so many other things that I didn't get around to asking you, and me and Darren can just talk like this for hours on end. So we'll do another
more.
one as soon as possible.
For sure, man.
And the thing is with my podcast, I want it to be like casual conversations, like that add value. Like I don't want it to be like, you might argue against this because you are all about strategy and stuff, but like I just want to have nice conversations that I think I enjoy and will also add value to people's lives.
If you enjoy it, if the guest enjoys it, if your audience enjoys it, it's going to grow naturally.
Exactly.
You know?
So once again, thank you so much, Darren. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everything.
Let's do another one soon.
Let's do it. Nice.